We're back. It is time for This is Dunder Moose, and we're going to do another Braunstein. I know you guys didn't see that one coming. We teased this last Wednesday, when we did Bradford Walker's Braunstein. Now we're here with Dorrinal's Braunstein. We were in Night City, y'all. We did some Cyberpunk 2020 action. So, Dorrinal, I'll let you introduce yourself first, of Geek Gab fame, and kind of give us a little bit of like a teaser of what the setup was, and then we'll go around the room and introduce the players and their characters. Take it away, my brother.
Welcome back to the streets. Thanks for having me on 2 weeks in a row, Dunder Moose.
Right on, man. You guys are raising the class of my show. I love it.
Appreciate that. I do the Geek Gab here on YouTube every Monday night. Me and Daddy Warpig, we always love role-playing games. Cyberpunk is one of my personal favorites. So I needed to run a game. Part of this goes back to B-Dub's Braunstein Challenge last summer.
That's right, Summer of Stein.
And part of this goes back to my just love for the game and desire to play it over again. So this is the game, Cyberpunk 2020, except no substitutes. This is the second edition of one of the best role-playing games ever made.
So you haven't made the jump to red. You're like, once you got perfection, you hung on to it.
Well, I tell you what, this is one of those things where I haven't been playing this since high school, but I played this all through high school.
Okay.
This and Dungeons and Dragons Second Edition, AD&D Second Edition. Those are my games.
Okay.
So this is something. If I'm going to do a Braunstein, something that's new to me as a ref, I'm going to play a system that I know well. So I haven't dived into Red yet. I have a copy of Cyberpunk Red. I need to do that. Nice.
All right. Fluid survived the monsoon or the typhoon.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it was nothing here.
Oh, good. So we got almost everybody here. I think that's great. So as I was saying, B-Dubs issued a challenge. You're not in the Brosar if you don't do a Braunstein.
You got to let go of the hashtag if you don't run one.
I did. I stayed out. I didn't do anything. But I've had this game in mind for a couple of years now. A game that I wanted to run. Only it's morphed, thanks to the advent of the Braunstein. The revival of the Braunstein, I should say.
Yeah.
Which is my original idea was to do gang warfare in the streets of Night City, where my players would make a gang for themselves and try to win territory. Well, a couple problems with that is that if that sounds boring to you, it probably is. And the other thing is that every time I broached this idea with a group of players, they just wanted to play cops instead. And I said, all right, sure, I guess. I mean, you don't want to be gangbangers. All right, fine. Lame. But the Braunstein idea really brought this back, and I thought, well, this is even better. Rather than have everybody sort of build a gang, and let's just give everybody a gang and have them fight over territory. So when I set up the Night Citystein, we've been talking about Braunsteins a lot, and a lot of people have noticed, among them Mr. Bradford Walker here said many times, that Cyberpunk is the perfect system for doing this type of game. It's got classic roles of cyberpunk fiction: the corporate executive, the netrunner, the mercenary, the rocker boy. You can be a rock star if you like. The fixer, the guy on the street who can get you all the drugs, guns, and information you want. The cops, the media corporations. You can play the guy from Max Headroom if you want, right?
Nice.
Not only are these great sort of evocative images, evocative classes like you get out of classic fiction, like the fighter and the cleric and the thief, right? They also could represent entire factions on their own. And that's what we did. So I gave everybody the setup. Okay, you guys, we're all going to be playing in a small section of Night City, just a few square blocks, and I'm looking to see what kind of roles you want to play. Who wants to be a net runner, who wants to be corp, who wants to be a solo. And these fine folks that we're going to hear from today, everybody brought their ideas on what they wanted to play, and so it morphed from a territory control war game on the streets. It immediately got out of hand, even before we started. Weeks before the game started, it got out of hand, and it became a free-for-all faction. Braunstein, everybody was playing at a higher level, and I mean that in multiple ways. I mean, not only were they playing zoomed out from just street level. Most Cyberpunk games are played at street level. We zoomed out a little bit, but they also brought the skills too. Hey, DJ in the chat. DJ was one of our players. I hope he can join us later.
Yeah, DJ, the link is in the Discord if you want to jump in.
So everybody brought their ideas, and I said I'd like to get 2 of every role. We didn't get 2 of every role because we only had 8 players, but we got everybody picked a little bit something different, and we got a lot of fun stuff happening. So, any questions before I continue this?
Okay, before you do, I just gotta say how cool it is. I finally got the Brady Bunch waffle on the screen.
I love it. On my screen, I'm right in the center. I hope that's what everybody else sees.
Yeah, you're right in the center, as you should be, as the DM, in the center of everything. Probably didn't feel that way while you were running it. But before we go into the setup, because I am dying to ask, like, how much did you prep? And how many sheets of paper did you just
all
have to
answers
rip
will
up?
be revealed. All you have to do is ask.
All right, let's go clockwise, starting with Mr. Bradford Walker. Please tell us a little bit about yourself and then a little bit about your character, if you would.
I'm Bradford C. Walker. Most of the time in and around the Broasar, I am notable for my main blog, Walker's Retreat, and in the last year, I started Walker's Lakeside Clubhouse, where I write a lot about tabletop adventure games and the culture therein. In this particular Braunstein, I played 2 cute Tomino, a corporate, working out of a subsidiary of the Arasaka Corporation. I envisioned this man as a blend of 2 Japanese, corporate moguls on the rise. Well, one of them is the founder and CEO of the Cover Corporation, which is the parent company of HoloLive, the biggest VTuber agency in the world. And the other is a man named Riku, who owns the number 2 agency, Niji Sanji, which is also a notorious black company. And
are you going to do it to me again? Are we going straight down the VTuber rabbit hole on another week in a row?
Oh, hell yes, we are. And for flavor, I took the inspiration from a game called Girls Frontline, where all the various real-world firearms are personified as cute anime girls. And I figured this has to be brilliant Arasaka PR. Make your gun into a waifu. It's gotta work. And so I started taking really stupid inside jokes and memes and real life stuff that's actually going on, and blended it into 2 cute Tomino. And
brilliant.
And
gives a whole new depth and flavor to the term smart linking with your firearm. We'll just say that.
Oh yeah. And yeah, that's why I started having fun with that, and I really enjoyed doing it. And he's I can sum him up as a villainous character with very good publicity.
Right, and my employer, but we'll get to that. All right, thank you, sir. Next on my screen is Mr. Crowley. Crowley or Crowley?
Let's go with Crowley.
Crowley. All right.
All right.
Tell us a bit about who you are. Tell us a bit about
yeah. So about myself, I'm just a humble Broasar player. I've been in Dubsron for a couple of years, kind of keeping a lower profile, but I got news of this game thanks to Dorrinal, and I decided to join in, and I've had a lot of fun so far. I'm playing a fixer named Crowley, and his ultimate motivations are, as of yet, not really known to the rest of the players, but
He's a
he's
big
been
question mark for me.
serving. Yeah, he's been serving as information broker. He's made a few alliances. He's been doling out some information here and there, trying to get some things instigated. We'll see where it goes from there.
All right, on. And now the next person clockwise on my screen is the other solo, Mr. Pleasant, played by Necroduna. Go ahead, introduce yourself and your character.
Hello, everyone. I'm Necroduna. I am very new to the Broasar. I started with Diceless Braunstein. Rosa Diceless, that was it. And I heard wind of this game on X. And I messaged Dorrinal, and I was very happy to be given a spot. I love Cyberpunk, and I've always wanted to actually play the RPG. My character is Pleasant, the solo and hired gun. He's just here for a good time. Ha, ha, ha.
Maybe not for a long time, but who knows?
I'm sorry. Anybody who's
so
read Neuromancer, the description of when his friend whose like personality has been totally uploaded to the computer, when he laughs, it is like straight uncanny valley, and like I just trigger on that book whenever you do your ha 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 thing. I'm just like, oh, that is chilling. Right on. Thank you, Pleasant. And next on my screen, DJ, introduce yourself and your character, if you would.
So I'm DJ Schreffler, and I've been BroSR adjacent, just seeing and. Are you talking to me? No, I'm not. Sorry.
No worries.
House egg. And so seen a lot of things, and this was fun to get in on. I played Dr. Moreau and figured, hey, medtechs make a lot of money. I'll go with that.
Right on.
Because they actually have the highest monthly income there. So figured, okay, so what's the name? Hey, let's go with Moreau. And then this gives me long-term goals built in that have absolutely nothing to do with the short-term scenario. So I am free to do whatever I want for the short term, and long-term, I have my goals for that.
And what a perfect choice for the setting. Like I'm pretty sure you're at some point you're going to start messing with genetics.
Right? that has already begun. That is the entire point.
A wholly unintended synergy with at least one other player who we'll hear from soon.
Right on. Well, let's keep the med techs going. Who was the other medical personnel but Fluid the Druid? Brian Renninger. Introduce yourself a little bit and your character.
Hello, Brian Renninger, played Fluid the Druid in Trollopolis, ran Trollopolis for a little over a year, I guess, ran Gangbuster also play the Thief Slippery Pete in Trollopolis. What was I going to say? Oh, my character was Caduceus, who was a med tech as well. I set myself up as an ambulance driver for REO Meat Wagon. And the reason why I chose that is I felt that if I could sell subscriptions for medical services to all the other players, they wouldn't want to kill me. And so that would be a way to survive. But
Hmm.
since these Braunsteins have been notorious for killing lots of people.
Wait, really?
For the
No.
PvP. I was like, I want them all to want me to live.
What makes you say that?
Maybe it's just you. But that was my strategy.
Right on, man. Okay, next on my screen is Wraith. Tell us about yourself and tell us about your character.
Hello, my bros. How you doing?
Good.
I'm Black Sam Bell. I play in Trilopulus when I get a chance. And over in Dubzeron, I've been doing the bro thing for about I guess this year so far. And so I've been in a couple Braunsteins over the course of this year. It's been really fun, every single one of them. And so as soon as Dor sent up a flare asking for players, I was like, well, shit, man, got to show up and bro out. Gotta
Right
support
on,
the
man.
dudes.
Be there,
And
do stuff.
I'm glad I did, because it was a blast. So in the game, I played Wraith, your local friendly neighborhood net slinger, a little bit of a cowboy, shady past. Only been in town a couple months, so I didn't have too many contacts. But I figured somebody would need some code broken or something, and so that was just kind of threw myself into it. And it was fun because I'd never played Cyberpunk before. I'd played other games like Shadowrun, and then Underground is another notable one. And yeah, it was fun, man. We had a really good time. So I don't know. That's pretty much the introduction for me, I guess.
All right. Next up, we had the inimitable Necro Dancers. I wasn't quite sure what you were up to the entire time. I'm still not sure I get it. But go ahead and introduce yourself, my brother, and tell us about your character.
So I am Aaron of Cronin to Cunnin fame, or last week, the Shadow Tower bad guys. I've been in and around this since January of this year. And other than that, just a fly on the wall of the memery on Twitter. And finally,
I feel like this is a BroSR support group.
pretty much. I mean, it's you fall into it one way or the other, and instead of breaking your leg, you find a pot of gold. So for me, I love Cyberpunk as a concept. I was aware of the genre, but I knew nothing about Night City or any of the specifics. Never played the system. I've been jumping at every Braunstein I can get at, and when this one came up, I was like, absolutely. This was me testing a thesis. Can you go into a Braunstein knowing nothing, with a meme and a dream, and make good things happen? And the answer,
a meme and a dream.
And that's exactly correct. So I am a rocker boy, mysterious metal man in a duster jacket, chromed out. Had the money to do it, even if I didn't necessarily figure out the specifics. I've actually spent a lot more time in the Cyberpunk manual since this because of just the interest that got sparked from it. But all that to say, I looked at the list, saw that there was a lot of obvious choices. But knew that there was this famous Cyberpunk character named Johnny Silverhand who is a rocker boy, and that means that I could probably get up to something in a similar vein. So picked that up. I had an idea from a song I heard 6 months ago and showed up to play, and boy, was it a good time.
And your guy had a very distinctive look as far as being like kitted out, right? Like,
yeah, it was very intentionally meant to be. It's very much meant to evoke a fantasy necromancer or lich style imagery. So he was very much chromed out externally with a leather duster on, and his whole shtick was that his shows were performed with recycled medtech that was turned into stage performance cybernetics.
wow.
So if you're familiar with Cyberpunk's Night City and the Dorrinverse afterlife, is the haunt of the Necrodancers, and it's called the Graveyard.
The graveyard with the G in parentheses, because it's also a raveyard.
The The tagline is "Whoops! Somebody knocked the G off the graveyard sign." So that was the premise, and more or less just did a little bit of research, 30 minutes on Night City, a YouTube video, and found enough to fall in love and to find the seedbed for my idea. So
Right on. And I will go next. This is Dunder Moose. I have been an inveterate Broasar fanboy. I feel like the episode of Baywatch when Hobie said, I never should have hung out with those kids down by the liquor store. I got in on Trilopulus, which was my dream, and I haven't looked back, and it is the best way to play, and I'm not apologetic about it. I will host people to disagree, but you guys know where I stand. And so Dorrinal said, hey, I'm doing this, and I was like, I'm in because I overcommit. I want to do all the things. And I have actually played Cyberpunk before. I played Cyberpunk Red. I had a buddy, man, this guy's awesome. And it's the overcommit thing. I had to drop out, but I played a whole campaign of West End Games Ghostbusters with him, and that was super fun. And then he was running Cyberpunk. And so Broderick the Butler was my character from that one. He's a solo. My whole backstory for him, I didn't even have to think anything up because I could just lift it from that previous game. He was a soldier. He made friends with a rich kid, saved his life, and then when he got shot to pieces, the kid convinced his parents to spend the money to put Broderick back together again. So he's got certain gear. He's a butler for this family, and that has allowed him to protect his own family by have them staying in a nice neighborhood with good, strong security and gates. But his family's running out of money, and so he's moonlighting as a solo. So he's kind of like this mixture of just a stone cold killer and someone who knows exactly what each fork is for and where it goes on the table when he's setting it, and that kind of thing. So that character stood out, and I thought that was fun. Also kind of channeling, I don't know if you guys have read Terry Pratchett, but the later books for the Night Watch, there's a butler that the main character has he's just a perfect genteel butler, but every now and then he says something, he lets something slip, and you realize the dude's got a really shady past, and something about that just spoke to me. So that's where Broad the Bod comes from, the butler. And so I was one of two solos, me and Pleasant. And so now the stage is set. So Dorrinal, you're getting all this from us. We're in the Discord. We're filling out. You said here's what you can be, and we're each. And for those of us watching that have either watching this later after the fact or watching right now and are like, how does this thing work? We have a Discord set up. We've got different channels, and there's like a general channel, and then there's a what did you call it? Roles or
Personae.
And so you say, yo, I'm Dunder Moose. I'm playing a solo named Broderick the Butler and a little bit of data. So he's stitching this together into what he thinks is going to be the plan, right?
Yeah. Well, it was really interesting because once the roles came in, and I got what everybody was interested in. Like I said before, my idea of like a street gang warfare thing kind of went out the window. Everybody,
there were hints of it. Like I got information.
That's right. I shouldn't say out the window. It went to the background.
Yeah, it became part of the setting. Nobody wanted to hire me to shoot anybody, which I was surprised because it was a Braunstein. I was like, hey, I'm a solo. I can take out these other players for you. I don't know why I thought that. Maybe Fluid. Yeah, maybe Fluid.
Issue.
In fairness, it was only because I not knowing anything about Cyberpunk, it was just taking a kind of from the people rocker angle, and so it was my thing with the start was I'm gonna clean it up for Dunder Moose. Screw cops, screw corpos, and what was the last one? And screw the mob. So that was my thing. Is like
sticking it to all the men. Nope,
basically, literally all of them.
I was gonna say stick it to the man, but sometimes thoughts just come out.
The man got to you first, which I'm sure you'll go into, and that's why.
Well, all I was just gonna say is the only one that hired me was Bradford. Too Cute to me. No said, well, I don't need any muscle, but what I do need I've got this ground crew, right? I got this street crew, and I need you to dress up like the main character of my show. And he even had a little, plastic Gatling gun that had a waifu that would hologram out and yell at people. And I was carrying that around, and I was just passing out flyers on the street. And like, the thing I noticed when I got to the street was that there was no cop presence. The cop presence had been pulled back from the street I was passing out pamphlets on. So was that you, Dorrinal, or was that already other Braunstein machinations, the cops being on?
That was actually me.
Okay.
The one of the best things that came out of the planning was I was really disappointed that nobody wanted to play a cop and that nobody wanted to play a media. I was fully expecting you to reprise your role as the newspaper man and play the media. But nobody wanted to play a cop or a media, and I immediately threw that into the scenario. So now we have a backdrop of there's gang warfare, and they're free to do whatever they want because for some reason, which you guys didn't exactly get to the bottom of, for some reason, the cops weren't around. There was no police presence, and there was a media blackout. Nobody was covering any stories, anything there. Nobody was reporting any crimes. Nobody was reporting any disturbances. There's nobody looking. Basically, nobody's looking at these like 6 square blocks of Night City. And that was just the setup. So I took that. And I needed to make sure that there was a MacGuffin. So this is where I'm gonna have to plug the guys at the Brosar. I'm gonna have to say thank you, Jeffro. Thank you, Jeffro, for making this such a great game. This is where Broser.
No, that's fine. If they're already done.
Right on, Broser. You got
Island of War and Winter, Broser. That's where this book comes in, right? Because the excellent essays by Jeffro and the How to Run Broser by B-Dubs. Shout out to B-Dubs.
Shout out to B-Dubs. Tribal Elder. Tribal Council.
Yeah. Tribal Council, something like, I don't know. In this free PDF, by the way, you get a great explanation for how to run a Braunstein such as Broser. And it came with great advice that we learned from doing the Gangbusters game and the Dubzeron Braunstein, which was you need an inciting incident. In Dubzeron, we used the shucked oyster burning down. Everybody remembers that. And in Broser, there's a MacGuffin. There's like a meteorite stone that has magical properties. What does it do? Who cares? Everybody wants it. And so I decided I would not use an inciting incident, or rather, the inciting incident would be all the players in this game noticed that there's no cops and no media, right? I made that explicit.
Yeah.
And I needed to add a MacGuffin, but I didn't do it up front. There were only a couple of the players who knew about the MacGuffin, and I let the game progress and let alliances form. And at halftime is when I gave everybody the MacGuffin, which, once again, I have to thank my amazing players for giving us, because it is one of you who memed into being a black site of an unknown mega corporation housing extremely valuable information.
Okay.
What was it? What was it? Money, information, data, whatever. Dare I spoil it? Does it matter? Probably not, except for to the one player who memed it into existence. They really cared about what was in that black site.
Do we dare name them, or would that wreck their game if people knew who it was?
I'll let the play. It doesn't really matter. I'll let the player. I want you guys to talk about it because I want to hear what you guys thought about all this. So the prep I had was here in Cyberpunk 2020. I've got gang rosters. I've got corporate. I've got they've got a great procedure for quickly generating an NPC. So I know generally what's going on in the neighborhood. If you wanted to interact with the gangs, which you did on a couple of occasions, I had the information for that. If you wanted to go make a raid on the black site, first of all, you had to discover it. I had the information for that. I did very little prep outside of that. And I told everybody up front, and I hope people listening, if you take one thing out of this, just take that. I told them up front, I said, guys, this is a Braunstein. I expect you to interact with each other. I expect this to be a player versus player game. And so instead of having that sort of upfront, everybody's fighting for this prize, I messaged most of the players, most of you guys, and gave you a little hook. Just if you hadn't already thought of a reason to interact with your players, with your opponents, here's a little something. I reminded the the necrodancers. Med techies are going to be a good source of parts.
Okay, so you're kind of doing the DM hook thing, but you're just selectively throwing out hooks to certain players in the hopes that it will bring you, in the hopes of what? Like
in just to kick off the conflict.
Okay.
Right.
So you are, as a DM of a Braunstein, you are aiming. You don't want us to get along. You don't want me to be happy to get paid to pass out flyers. You want to break some eggs and make an omelet.
Absolutely. I want to make sure that, and most people's hooks were of that nature. There's something that you need, and someone else has it. It doesn't have to be violent. It just means that there's going to be conflict. There's going to be drama. Who's going to get the thing, or are you willing to do what the other person wants you to do to get the thing? For example, Necrodancers was probably the best example, right? Medtex is going to be your best place for body parts. And for the fixer, the fixer, this is another thing that I decided right at the start of the game, or as soon as the roster was completed, as soon as we had a fixer, I said, great, because I don't want any of you talking to me. I don't want you asking me stupid questions about what's this or that and everything like that. You need to go through another player. You need to stay on his good side. You need to pay him. And that let Crowley or Crowley, I guess, that gave him something to play with. It's a great starting point, and also that took that weight off my chest where I could just talk to him.
Right on.
But that was it. I as soon as everybody was together, I said, "This is the scenario." You guys noticed that there are no police, no media, so it's kind of a free for all on the streets. And if you can get away with stuff, so can everybody else.
Yeah.
And I had also seeded amongst the players a few ideas like, hey, you're looking for Wraith, you're looking for a black site. Necrodancers, you want body parts? Here's how. And Tomino, I gave everything. He basically did all the work for me. I didn't even fully understand what he was doing until tonight when he explained again what the VTubers were doing with the weapons. Now I now fully understand everything.
Yeah, and I'll say that this is where a little bit of experience came in too, because I looked at what a lot of other people were volunteering for, picked this one, picked the Rocker Boy role, and the nice thing about this style of Braunstein, and that we've talked about, I think even a little bit last week, is it relies a lot more on DM improv, or the referee improv of like, okay, yep, and just accepting the fact that if people are memeing things into existence, letting that be, responding to that as well, it's sort of filling in around it. One of the things that I had done is built into the concept that this afterlife mock-up of the graveyard was a place that, because of where it was in Night City on the edge of the corporate center and the kind of the lower end of town, that it was a place where everybody could kind of come to, had a standard, everybody would dress up like the Grim Reaper with little skull masks and hoods and stuff on. And I kind of had made that up to facilitate a place where all of these people could come and dish secrets, kind of built in as one of the player locations, right? So like, my character was mostly there,
and that was
also
its
where a
own,
lot of places.
That was its own channel, voice channel in the Discord that people could go to.
Yeah, we had a couple of them. If I pull it up here, we had a couple of them, and this is honestly brilliant to do. We had the streets. We had
That's
the
where I spent my
Brownstone.
time passing out flyers.
We had the Brownstone Arcology, which was this the subset of blocks that Dorrinal was talking about that we were fighting over. The graveyard, and then we had 3 private channels so that people could pair off into to kind of mock up like side room conversations.
Wasn't there like a bar or something too, or was that the
Yes.
graveyard?
Yes, that was at the graveyard.
Okay.
Yeah,
It was like a bar / nightclub.
So
and,
you
and, and that
said,
works out really well because it also lets you know who's where on the map, based on
Yeah.
who's in which. That way you can kind of like go, okay, cool. Well, crap, I wanted to talk to that guy, but now I got to walk, across town to go find him. So, so
okay, so there's two things that just came out that I want to kind of talk about, not specifically to this Braunstein, but Braunsteins in general. And the first is what you said about DM improv, the whole yes and mindset. And this is a unique group to ask this question because I think we've got three Braunstein DMs in the channel right now. I don't know if there's ever been as experienced a panel as what you guys are getting on This Is Dunder Moose tonight. I'm gonna ask each of them, Bradford, Dorrinal, and Fluid. How do you feel about the role of the DM being an improv and a yes and? Because I've played in some. I played in one particular where the DM was like, to a bunch of stuff that didn't fit his vision, right? I'm talking about Jeffro, and I'm talking about the Traveler one. And in that case, he was right. I needed to cut some stuff that didn't fit into the milieu that was just where I was memeing. But it sounded like, from what I heard you say, that Dorrinal's improv, his yes and, made it for you. So from the three DMs, how do you feel about that improv? And does it open you up to a character who may try to win by memeing things as opposed to interacting with the others? I'll start with Bradford, and then I'll go Fluid and Dorrinal.
My position is that it depends a lot on what on what you're trying to do with a particular Braunstein, or or a campaign generally. For the tower, as long as it was within the bounds of the core rule books of AD&D First Edition, I really didn't care. which is why our, we had a halfling player running druids using animals as drones and getting away with it. It worked. It was it was a novel use of game mechanics, and I thought that was funny, so I let it go. And
that's the secret to winning, is making the DM laugh.
But if I were to say run paranoia, that'd be a different set of sensibilities, and I may shut things down. Likewise, if you're trying to do something well out of the sensibilities of, say, a 30s era pulp adventure game, something inspired by Indiana Jones, that's a different story altogether. And God forbid you try to mash all of that together. That's a situation where a lot of discretion needs to be called for, because some things that sound cool in the moment have second and third order effects that can and do wreck the game for everyone.
So part of it for you is the rules, and part of it is the conceit of the setting, where you're like, okay,
the integrity.
If we're playing AD&D, it's everything's kind of on the table because that's a gonzo fun game that can handle it. But if we're playing something that has a very specific flavor, that's when you might be like, I don't want to say no, but I might adjust. Or would you just flat out say no, that sucks, don't do it?
I will say no. If I'm running a historical fiction scenario, based off the Franco-Prussian War, and you come at me with vaguely weird fiction werewolf vibes, I'm gonna say no.
Okay. All right, Fluid's turn, because I feel like the way that Gangbusters ran was very much the way you wanted it to run. How do you feel about this dichotomy between your vision, almost like an editor for an anthology, your vision for how it's supposed to go, and that being willing to follow the player zeal where it wants to go in a Braunstein setting? What do you think, Fluid?
I'm a big fan of following their zeal and allowing them to meme things into existence. However, I do think that I'm not a big fan of saying no to things. So I feel it's, the DM's duty to provide enough information to really make the setting coherent to the players so that the things they meme into existence work with that setting. And that does mean more prep probably than most of the other Braunsteins that we've done, but that I did in mine. That's my own choice, but also I did that because I wanted to test specific things, which was how this might work to simulate a gangbusters game if it was mature rather than necessarily starting at first level.
I feel like we played Gangbusters the way it was meant to be played.
I think you can start at first level though and build up to a point like that.
Oh, okay.
Which is the next thing I hope to do at some point.
Right on. All right, Dorrinal, did we beat
Yeah.
the horse to death, or have you got some more perspective on it?
I mean, I've been beating this drum with Jeffro in particular for actually a couple of years now. That when people go off the rails with Gonzo or Muppets or whatever, I love that stuff, right? But and the best example was the Macho Mandalf, the solo domain building, right? And I told everybody time and again, like, look, that's great, but there needs to be one guy who's responsible for the milieu. Like one guy's got to be able to say, hey, no, let's do this.
A director, if you will.
Yeah, because someone's responsible for it, right? And it is the ref. In this game here, this demonstrated that like the players are interested in what they're interested in, and as I was developing the MacGuffin for this event. Wraith actually came to me with his MacGuffin because it was a character he wanted to play, and I had to say, yeah, but right.
Okay.
I wanted him to be the MacGuffin. He was going to be the MacGuffin, and then I was like, you should have a regular Netrunner character who's working for the MacGuffin, and so that'll be your primary goal. And so Wraith's primary goal was to get to that black site, get the object, which is perfect, right? Netrunner, get the pay data and leave. And that's perfect. Run with that. Are you kidding me? It
almost worked, but we'll get.
It almost worked. Yeah, and
Well,
Tomino's idea was perfect for the setting as well. Like, yeah, he's working for a big megacorp. He's got some big clandestine operation, and the Brownstone Arcology, which was going to be the site of this conflict amongst the gangs and everything like that. This is where he was doing the testing, and so he's vulnerable. But but he's free to do whatever nefarious actions he wants.
Yeah.
And the Necrodancers just came up with a third thing.
Honestly, dude, the whole thing was not knowing anything about Cyberpunk, and again, this comes into the meme and dream idea. Like I said, I'd heard a song about that. I just thought it'd be really cool for there to be a Cyberpunk bar run by a guy with metal skeletons called the Necrodancer, and that turned into a thing where I said, "Oh, there's medtechs and there's people playing medtechs." So I can I made up the whole thing about it being reused biotech from bodies so that I gave myself a tie-in to other characters for the DM. And then also, but like all of the stuff that Bradford did with Tomino, with Dr. Moreau, is the kind of thing that I'm talking about. If you can come up with a long-term arc or goal for this character or concept that has nothing to do with whatever is actually going on, but you, as a player, right, with a mind toward making the game function and run as well as it can, understand that this is going to be part of it. This is a stepping stone on the route of whatever your big scheme is. Then it allows you to, with little idea of operating the system, if you've ever played any diplomacy or anything like that, and you know the interpersonal stuff of the Braunstein, then it just runs away from there. I didn't know anything about the MacGuffin or any of that. I just knew that there was some stuff going on in the Brownstone, and so I decided to tie all of my stuff into, well, that's where I'm going to be doing it then. Okay. Like, it's one of the things that's underspoken and undervalued player skill is taking the bait, taking the DM bait, taking other players' bait. That's why I bought the REO Meat Wagon subscription. Okay.
Oh,
So
man.
not just for myself, but if I conveniently start a fire somewhere, I can send the ambulance after that,
Was
So
I
there's
the
lots
only
of
one that
ways
didn't buy the subscription to the REO Meat Wagon?
I'm pretty sure you are, actually, because he made a
It would have
killing on
done me
that.
no good anyway.
I think it was just you.
So I guess that's what I'm saying, is that all of the players, all of their memery was all of them are experienced enough to have made the memery within. It's not a 360-degree free for all. It's a 90-degree vector of I'm going to create chaos in this direction, trying to tie in with whatever the DM is up to and doing.
Right on. So, okay, I feel like we kind of addressed the big nuanced question, and then, Sam, I forgot, I didn't hold in my head the thing you said that triggered a question. Can you remember what you said before I dragged the topic away from us?
Which thing was it? I can't remember right now.
I lost it.
Well,
I'm
I
sorry,
don't
guys.
remember anymore.
He said
But to build
something
off
very
what-
interesting about.
Well, to build off what he was just saying was, it's like when it's your friends throwing a party, right? So everybody, you're going to bring something to the party, whether it be drinks or food or whatever, and then that's what makes the party happen. Somebody's going to bring some music, some necro dancing, maybe, who knows? And then just everything bounces off of that as people start to interact. Like it seems like it's starting slow at first because everybody's kind of feeling each other out. Because one thing I wanted to mention was like PvP. People think of that just because of the gaming console thing where you're shooting people in Halo or Call of Duty or whatever. That it's just fighting each other. No, like PvP is you're trying to figure out who your enemies are, whose goals directly go against yours, and then other people's goals that maybe you can help out with if they can get you to where you need to be. And so that's where all the fireworks happen, and they certainly happened that night.
Or even if it benefits you nothing, but it's insanely funny, there's just whatever the decision is.
Yeah, exactly. And and at first with the MacGuffin, my intention was to play a media, sort of, and then when he put the, not GM fiat, but he's like, hey, okay, cool, well, I want to do this with it, and I'm like, awesome. So then I rolled my character up, and luckily there's a life path system because I know nothing about Cyberpunk, like I haven't even played the video game. So like that whole week, all of my downtime, personal time, was spent trying to figure this thing out, and then rolling up a character, and it was a blast. And so, and just from those random rolls, as everything started compiling, I was able to figure out, okay, some motivation for the guy, and then from there, what he's in town to do. So, you just got to play the game and roll with it. I mean, that's where that's where the fun's at.
Okay, and I did miss Necroduna has also he's kind of here from me. Has also DM'd a Braunstein. So I would be interested in your answer to the question about how much prep should a DM do who wants to run these, and where is your slider on the whole improv yes and let's go versus no, this is my vision for the world. Go ahead, man.
I think the games that I've run have used a lot more prep, but once it's going, my hand is off the wheel. So I set up the perpetual motion machine, and then I let it run. My only real input is in judgments when it's needed. So with more prep, you have more control over the milieu.
Sorry, that voice is still killing me.
I love it. I love it.
I do want to ask, having run one, does that change the way that you think about prepping for if you were going to do another one? in a way that you think that people that might want to try this would do well to keep in mind?
I'm still quite new and figuring it out. I'd suggest the more you put into setting up the scenario, the more confident you can be that Braunstein dynamics will arise.
Hmm. And it seemed like you were going to say something there, Dorrinal. Did I step on your line? What were you about to?
No, I was thinking along those lines. I would love to, if I did another Cyberpunk Braunstein, I would do a little more prep, flesh out a few more locations that would help out. I suspect that we had a great game because of the quality of the players and the quality of stuff you guys all brought to the game. Is you know what they say, every ref says, I'm not as smart as all my players, right? And every idea that came across my desk was better than every idea I had. So I just ran with it.
Right on. Man, that's going to eat me that I don't remember.
You're going to remember it 4 hours from now. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, but it's like we're doing this live, so I can't just edit it back in.
Well, I have a question, because what I want to know is Sam talked about like getting things rolling and just playing, and it worked. So I had the familiar ref experience of, for the first hour, I thought nothing was happening and it was terrible and everybody was bored. But you guys loved it. So tell me, how did it get started? How did you guys get started?
I was bored. That's because nobody was using it.
I don't think any of us know, because of the way that the chats are set up, which I think is a really good way to do it, unless we can find something better, but I have no complaints with it, is that everybody starts talking. We all, like, somebody snags one guy and says, hey, come over into the corner, I want to talk to you over in this channel.
Yeah.
So you don't know what's going on outside of your, you're on the periphery. You can barely kind of see it with the next question they ask the next guy. So it just starts happening from what I can tell. I mean, from this, the Shuckstein, the Trollopulous one was a little different because we kind of had set goals already, and it was a caravan thing. But it just kind of like starts rolling, and then eventually somebody does something, shoots a rocket launcher, and really kicks things off. So
right. Well, I think there's players that start off maybe for their own backstory reasons, like goals that they want to work from, and then there's players that start off as observers, going, "What is the web here? What's the power chain? What's the hierarchy? Where can I start making my deals and stuff?" And I definitely started off in a more passive, radar sweep kind of way.
Same with me.
And same with me. If I'd been smarter, I would have hired Dunder there to assassinate the people who had just hired me to provide medical care.
Yeah.
But instead, I was just waiting
You're an
around
evil
for them to
genius.
shoot each other so that I could collect their bodies. But I should have been more proactive. I did get to murder some civilians and sell their bodies. There was no police.
In game.
I felt like, for
In-
me, it felt
in-game.
like, you guys can, you can tell me what was going on that I wasn't aware of. I felt like the game had two acts. I had a very, very kind of boring first act where I was trying to stir up whoever would talk to me. I was trying to get information. I was trying to get people to trust me, and I was trying to get missions from them on stuff that I could do. And then there just happened this co-opting thing where I was on the streets, and so was the ambulance, and so was Tamino. He was stopping by to see if I needed anything. And it wasn't even me and Pleasant weren't even in the same room. We were just kind of chatting back and forth, using our solo network or whatever. And he's like, well, Tamino's like, I'm going home. See ya. And then I don't remember. Do you remember, Fluid, how we got the idea to follow that car? Maybe that was me.
I can add a little bit of context here, actually, because right away, right at the start, as soon as I waited politely for Dorrinal to get done with his intro, and this is the nice thing about having a meme idea in the chamber, is that if he presented a very strong, here's a MacGuffin, here's what we're all chasing for, then I could table all of that stuff and gear more toward that. Or if there wasn't anything there right away, I wanted to come in and be the person who provided a structure for other players to play off of. Right at the start, I pulled in Crowley, and I started saying, okay, I need a fixer. I need some intel on a couple of things. And I asked him a bunch of questions. He says, okay, I don't have any answers, but I'll get back to you. And I started that off. From there, I wanted to get one of the gunners in my pocket because I wanted to play people against each other and get some money on the table and moving and deals going. Didn't really have any plans for that at first. And then I needed to get a hold of the med techs because I'm the necrodancer and I needed to secure my body pipeline.
Yeah.
So
you had a lot of irons in the fire from the get-go.
Yeah, my idea more or less from the start was, okay, I read that this skill in the Rocker Boy list called charismatic leadership.
Yeah.
And charismatic leadership says that you can influence, I think it's like 20 times your charismatic leadership skill people. I don't know how it works out, but I know that the final number with a 10 charismatic leadership was 20,000. And you can influence them to do a number of things for you, depending on how high the skill is. And it was basically saying that Hitler has like an 11 or a 9 charismatic leadership. And I was like, that's excellent. I can work with this. And I made sure to max that out. So with that in mind, I had this idea of literally Hitler, literally Mecha Hitler.
Literally shaking in my breath.
And all of that to say that the idea was to build toward, at some point during the session, setting up a concert, because he's a major act in town, and turning that into a riot and pointing that at however many people I could get as an army against whatever the thing was, whether it's the MacGuffin, another player, whatever.
Yeah, and Bradford, you had a concert that was happening as well, right?
I was having a promotional event.
Which I was like getting people drummed up for. That's what the flyers were for that I was passing out.
Yeah.
I was the Pizza Hut guy with the sign, just or Little Caesars or whatever.
What I was coming in with is that Tomino's new to Night City. He's coming in from Japan, and he's transferring here to start up North American operations for his VTuber agency. Well, the VTuber agency exists to whitewash Arasaka's public image. That's what it's there for.
By the way, I'm covered in Arasaka logos on a street with no cops. Sorry, go ahead.
Which, if you know anything about Night City, or the Arasaka's reputation needs whitewashing. This was,
and so I'm there. I've rented this empty retail space to do to set up a pop-up store which sells merchandise for a TV show, and it called My Minigun Hates All Women. And the idea is that one of the existing VTuber talents for the VTuber agency is playing the title role. In other words, it's the gun waifu. And it's supposed to be a sitcom about a solo with a minigun who gets really mad whenever the solo talks to any other woman. So, and
is it because it's like got the personality of his ex-wife in it or something?
Well, I didn't even bother going that far because, quite frankly, a lot of the stuff I was taking for inspiration doesn't go that far either.
Well, you were the perfect person to play this game.
So the whole idea is that I was going to have this pop-up store. I was going to sell merchandise, shirts and stuff, and there was going to be DLC to be sold, to be sold dirt cheap, and the DLC was supposed to be waifu skins for your gear.
Okay.
And so that when it popped up in the net or when you popped up a hologram, it would be the skin and not not the default model. And
Yeah,
well,
you don't want to get
there was
caught in a
supposed to be
firefight with the default model. Come
No,
on now.
boring,
Come on.
embarrassing,
You
cringe.
got to look
cringe
good
way
at
to
Night
die.
City.
Mm-hmm. So there was supposed to be a bit of code in the DLC downloads that was supposed to call home. It is nothing more than it's very simple. It's very simple data tracking. Much like everybody's got a snitch brick. It's the same basic idea. So all it does is just, okay, how much
Snitch
chrome and stuff do you have, and what do you do with it? And we're trying to build up a database of users, and then we sell that to other people or internally between divisions of the corporation, or sometimes to other corporations, and then we use that to finance further development, which is to further refine the VTuber until Project Apple is fulfilled, and I have Sharon Apple straight out of Macross Plus as an eternal corporate slave.
She can't age out of the role, right? And she's
Can't
perfect.
age out of the role, can't rebel, can't rebel.
She doesn't lock
can't-
herself in her trailer. She's just
doesn't
okay.
kill herself, doesn't
So-
have Menhera episodes.
But I'll
watch.
just to tie this back together, to throw it to another person on the panel here. After talking to the fixer, I immediately tapped in Dr. Moreau because nobody was talking to him, and he's a med tech, and I needed to start working the body angle, and it just so happened, and I knew that this would be the case, that I could fish for other fires to start by virtue of making deals with other players, and one of those was getting involved in Dr. Moreau's research and getting his services in exchange for being another backer of his, with a little bit less oversight and less tight on the purse strings than the guys that are already sponsoring him. So he can talk about that if he wants to.
Right.
But that's where it started from there, and that's how I got him involved, which then started me hiring other players from the dealings with him.
So I think I understand what everybody's game was at the beginning, except for Moreau and Crowley, and I want to hear from Pleasant as well, because I feel like you might have started off the same way that I might have done. But Crowley, what was your goal? What angles were you working from the get-go while I was out there just passing out flyers on the street?
Yeah, so as fixer, obviously information is my currency. So my goal was to get to find out what was valuable information to all the other players, try to get that information, and then sell it as many times as possible to ingratiate myself with as many of the other players as possible, and to gain influence for whatever my future purposes are.
And that can be an interesting role. As someone who's played a newspaper before, there's like the mechanics of the game for that. Like you can put stats in that. But in a Braunstein, it's hard to do that, right? Because you've got to actually play the other people to get their information. It's not like you can ask the DM, because the DM probably doesn't know what you want to know because nobody's told the DM yet. Right? So how did you approach that?
Yeah, so I got, as Necrodancer said, he came to me first, so I had like something to start off with. So I asked the DM for that specific piece of information, and then I thought to myself, who among the players that I know of based on their roles can use this information, and what can I kind of exchange for it either now or in the future.
Got it. Okay. And was that a plan of yours from the get-go, or was that just something where you were like, I know I want to work this angle, and then it just came to you? You didn't have to go out
I would say it came to me, because as a fixer, right, I'm not one of the big players, at least not at the beginning, right? I'm just kind of watching the chaos happening and seeing how I can profit from it.
Right. Okay. So Dr. Moreau, you got Fluid out there taking on, he's selling subscriptions. He had 3 different plans too, like the gold, the platinum, and the diamond plan or whatever. What were you doing at the beginning of the game, and what was your early strategy?
Well, I did not realize this was a one-shot. I thought this was going to be something extended, something long term. So I had no short term goals whatsoever.
Well, for
Only
those that survived it, it may be more than a one shot.
I only have a very long term goal, which is in fact implied by the character name. So, I mean, what would you think if you had a bunch of Militech cybered up werewolves coming at you?
Awesome. I mean, I wouldn't think awesome in the moment, but like enjoying that idea, that sounds amazing.
Or genetically engineered cat girls. The memes are there, they flow naturally. And so that's the long-term goal. I have no idea. This is a one shot, so I don't have any short-term goals. It's like, okay, what can I do? How can I get backing? How can I get funds to expand what I want to do?
Okay.
And so,
did you pursue people for that, or did they come to you, or was that kind of a parallel goal along with just all the crazy that was starting to happen?
Let's see here. Necrodancer came to me to get things started, and then Caduceus also came, and so it's like, okay, I will take your goods, sanitize them, and get them to a ready customer. And so it's like I am now the middleman in the pipeline here, sanitizing things between the person actually getting the goods and the person receiving things at the end.
He was my
body part launderer.
Yep.
Exactly. and cyberware, because we're scavenging some biomods and what have you off of there as well.
So can I tell you that I was horrified by all this, by the way? Go ahead.
And so I'm just hanging out, and occasionally Dorrinal pops into the room chat to say, hey, what's going on? I was like, oh, we're having a good time. And it's like, okay, is there anything you need me for? Nope. Go ahead, go somewhere else. And that was that.
And Pleasant was razzing me in the back channels, by the way, while you guys were talking. He's like, yeah, for Dunder, it literally was a one shot. We'll get to that. That gets later.
I was horrified by this series of events because my original setup of no cops, no media, something shady's going on. You should get it first, right? And then when this medtech necrodancer's axis started to form, and I got the first order from Caduceus says, yeah, I'm just gonna, if I can't find a gang fight, I'm just gonna murder some punks and take. I went, what? and yes. This whole vision flashed before me of course the two med techs are absolutely evil, and they're going to use the lack of police as cover to stage mass murders and sell all the parts to the necrodancers. What is happening?
I have a flying ambulance and a minigun. What do you want me to do with it?
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll get into that.
And I have a back alley clinic. They're in the Brownstone Arcology. It's like, what else? Where else is this person going to go? And what else?
I imagine Moreau makes a great living fixing up gangbangers.
And to be fair, I had another plan where I hired the hacker to hack the promoter guy's thing to put Ario Meat Wagon logos all over everything. in his virtual gals.
Nice. Yeah, I hope you guys are getting a sense of, because a lot of times we get asked when we run Braunsteins, can you please put a session report out? Can you tell us how it went? And are you getting a hint of all of the things that are happening at the same time? It would be very difficult to write this down because everything's happening concurrently, as each player is either waiting for something to happen that they can adjust or making things happen in the world.
There's no one person that knows anything.
Yeah. And at least of all the DM, right? I mean, poor Dorrinal's in here. He's like, okay, I got my scenario. And they're like, yeah, we're going to kill people on purpose. And then we're going to launder their body parts and selling them on the black market. And he's just like,
on the other hand, is there a more cyberpunk thing you could do?
It's tough to say.
And honestly, this kind of started based on something that again was an inspiration from a film that I liked, which is The Repo Man.
Oh, there you go.
I figured that there were shitty corporations in Night City that paid repo men to come and repo the poor and the middle classes cybernetics. So I was laundering these to fans as like promotional things. Oh, the Necro Dancer is like restoring. So I was basically cultivating the citizen army to via this pipeline. And I was like, any cyberware you can get, I'll take, but especially anything that has weaponry, like, you know, because we're gonna turn the peasants.
I'm sure some of my
into-
parts are floating around right now, but the thing that reminded me of, there was a Monty Python sketch like this too, where like they had people that had, you know, donated their organs, and like the collection crew got ahead of schedule, and they were like, yeah, come on, we'll slit you up a treat.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I'm still
I don't-
using it. That reminds me for the Necrodancer. I don't know. This is an old thing. But I don't know if they're even around anymore. But you should look up survival research laboratories. That sounds like exactly what you're doing.
Well, yeah, I'll definitely have to look that up. I was gonna say this ties in as well with the other fires I was lighting, because this is all before halftime, before Dorrinal kind of came in and revealed the MacGuffin to everybody.
All right, before we get too deep in it, I want to let Pleasant give a chance to do his first sweep of the radar, and then we can get into the mid game.
You have now all heard from the smart people. Pleasant does not have a brain. He has a gun. My hook into the game was very simple. You have a contract. Find out who it's from and who it's for, and execute it. However, I never found out either of those. So Pleasant was very simple to play. He likes to do jobs for people. It's all about having a good time. And by the way, this was his voice.
Totally, that was the voice we heard every time we spoke with him.
Yeah, it was golden. It was golden.
It really set the tone. I loved it. I still love it.
So at the beginning of the game, I was reaching out to people to see if they had work for me, because who doesn't have work for a big gun in Night City?
Right.
The first
Well, and I started
job
reaching out to you as well, and like the first couple times, it was almost like a competitive thing. You were like, "Why would I share with you? I want to
You
get the
were
contract,
trying to
not you."
grift off my superior market value.
Right.
Yep.
So I, by virtue of being on the street, I'm out of focus here. What have I got to do? Just by virtue of being on the street, I overheard certain conversations that happened on the streets. I may have been a little confused about Tamino's event, because I heard about the concert. That must have been the Necrodancer one. And I overheard Fluid saying that he was going to float over the concert and try to observe something. So I was like, he's got something set up. I don't know what it is. But I reached out to Tamino to say, hey, just to let you know, someone's going to be observing your event. Do you need more security? Trying to work an angle to get some like not acting work, but you know, I had this poor girl who just kept running out and giving me water and giving me more flyers and stuff. And I just started talking to her and hanging out with her because I was like, what's going on out here? But then through talking to the other solo on the solo back channel, that's when you must have dropped in that MacGuffin, because all of a sudden Wraith started coming into it. And he was just like, I need you, because I was like, do you need me to get into that concert and maybe open certain doors? You know, while everyone's looking one way, do you need someone that can kind of get your people in and out? And that's when we started strategizing and talking. And he was like, I need a distraction. and kept asking me if Tamino's computer was with him.
I think I can put together the thread here.
Okay.
So, first, as a quick tangent, my first job was going with Caduceus to collect bodies. I am only now discovering it involved killing people. But Pleasant would totally have done that. That's also how I got my platinum subscription.
Which comes in handy for later.
That's the real MacGuffin.
The platinum subscription is the real MacGuffin.
So after that, I was looking for more work, and the most promising lead was from the Necro Dancers, who was looking from some Arasaka data. I said we'd need a net runner. He said I should hire it. He preferred to only work through me. So that's when I reached out to Wraith.
Okay.
It's specifically, I sidled up to him at the bar in a vaguely threatening manner.
It's okay. He
So
wasn't my type.
Wraith, were you looking for the black site, or was there some other data that you were on from the beginning that was on that Tamino computer?
Yeah, I don't want to give away too much because we may do this again, and
Okay,
it's still
fair
out
enough.
there. But yeah, definitely the black site is what Wraith was there to do.
So that
And
was a
he had-
Dorrinal hook. I'm saying that wasn't just you memed it into existence.
Yeah.
That was something that
well,
Dorrinal had set up.
Kind of.
Both.
He he took it, and then I passed it at him, and then he passed it back, and I'm like, okay, cool, we'll run with this. So the whole thing was Wraith was, he's only been in town a couple months, and he's been looking for this place. And so the first thing I did once I got there, after hanging out in the bar for a little bit, figured out who the fixer was. Went over to Crowley, because if you're going to give away any kind of little bit of info, you might as well give it away to the fixer, because he's probably going to know something about it anyway. And so from there, he went off and tried to go find some info. He dug up some stuff, and then Pleasant sidled up to me, and I was like, well, cool. I was going to talk to one of the solos anyway, because we're going to need some muscle to get this done. And it just kind of snowballed from there in whatever different directions. As much as the referee, the game master, might think they're not controlling anything, neither are the players. Like, you're only just you're bouncing stuff off of a wall. It's like a racquetball match. And so, but we got a lead. We went out. We scouted out the black site, just to make sure that's what it was, and it absolutely was. And then when we got back, Pleasant had already kind of talked to you, checking out Mr. Cutie Pie over there.
Yeah.
And then we just kind of launched off in that direction, spontaneously, because it just seemed like things were starting to move. So we had to get on it.
Now this is interesting to me because you were onto Tomino's stuff, and everybody really enjoyed what Bradford was doing with Tomino and all the trouble he caused, such that you were actively going after his data as well, which was going to be very valuable. But I want to know if you guys had actually confused the threads, which is great, because it started to seem to me like some players had thought that Tomino's black ops were the black site that you guys were looking for, that the black site that you were looking for were his or part of his plan.
So I'll just say it was partly because of Dr. Moreau and my agreement. He wanted biotech to work on biotech intel to work on his cat girls and werewolf soldiers. So we just kind of figured, well, who best to have that, and we knew that a safe target from his perspective,
Girls and
all
werewolves.
parties' perspective, was Arasaka, who might have
Always
something
weak
like
and
that.
all support.
So that whole thing about hiring the solo who hired the Netrunner to put the hit on Arasaka was totally because of Moreau's meme.
Okay.
Wow.
So that was that, and then I didn't know what the black site was about, and I had interpreted the media and the cop blackout to mean that like something was maybe going to be moved there. So I was just preparing to, and I guess we'll get to it, but I was preparing to set up a distraction to start a fire to pull a lot of people away, including players, so that I could do an impromptu concert that I had been spreading rumors throughout the day, and hiring people to like promote, to
See,
pop
I
up
got
in
that
area.
concert mixed up with Tamino's promotional event. I thought he was having some virtual talent perform to sell at the pop-up store, and like I thought there was going to be an event.
Which is funny because I was kind of intending there to be a little bit of confusion about that, because
Well, you worked. And I was hitting brick wall after brick wall with Tamino because like I'm like, all right, this concert's going to go down. I need to be in on the security detail so I can get these guys into his office while he's watching the show, get his briefcase, get his laptop, get his memory stick, whatever. I need to get Wraith and I need to get Pleasant in and out without being noticed. But every time I asked Tamino, I was like, hey, do you need any security? Do you need any help? He's like, no, I'm good. I've got enough security. And then I'm like, oh, crap, what's going on? And then at one point, I asked him about it again, and he's like, "Oh yeah, no, I canceled that event. It's not going to happen." I'm like, "Crap, what's going on?"
Well,
Do you want to talk about that, Bradford?
Oh well, I'll
Well,
let you go.
From my perspective, I'm getting messages here and there about somebody about data transfers being piggybacked off my feed, and I'm thinking, oh, I see, somebody in the higher ups is trying to play me. Okay, so yeah, I know. I listen to mom and dad because you told me those parents are also corporates, and so the idea was pretty simple: maintain the public face, maintain the public face, maintain the pretense of the event being on, but have one hand on the on the ripcord, and as soon as it looked like it was going to go south, pull it, and that's what I did.
Yeah.
And
Strategic.
Mhm.
Did you know what I was angling for? Were you like, oh, come on, Dunder?
Honestly, I did. It did not even occur to me.
Do you guys realize how it feels to go from being known as like the most dangerous player in a Braunstein to I think we got some work for you handing out flyers and water bottles?
You even chose the shoot people in the face profession, and
Yeah.
nobody asked you to shoot anybody in the face.
Dunder, I don't know if he's up to it.
as
Let's
soon as
just
you worked with Tomino, you were
to
persona
be
non
fair,
grata.
To be
just
fair,
didn't occur to
like,
me.
I was pinging it off of a couple people at the time. I'm like, okay, cool. Well, how about we hire this guy? And then, because I hadn't directly interfaced with you at all yet.
Not at all. Nope.
And so I was like, well, who is this guy? Do you think we can trust him? We could use some more guns. And then everybody else was like, nah, I don't trust him. And I'm like, okay. Sounds good to
Like
me.
Gary says, in this economy.
Well,
I found it impossible to believe that he was just sitting there handing out flyers the entire time.
He's gotta be up to something.
Tragically, I did believe him.
Well, like, so the whole Butler thing was basically, it's like, okay, well, he definitely works for somebody already, so he's here as a plant. So I thought you could have been a Netwatch dude, just somebody unsavory, maybe a badge, but it worked out. But yeah, no, so like when it all kind of came down and we figured out that the black site was I think Arasaka is. I can't remember how we came to that conclusion. I was like, oh, well, doesn't this media dude over here, the Corp guy, he's a subsidiary of Arasaka. Well, it's an air gap system, and for people that don't know, that means that there's no wires that go outside of the building. You have to get inside the building to hack it. So I'm like, well, we need to get more info. So that's why we went after his computer, and went after him, was so that we could maybe get a foot in the door there, and then
So
You
Fluid-
guys are thinking too much.
Yeah, I had no
I
idea.
had a job to get some data, and so that was my goal.
Yeah.
Pleasant
But
was
you
a
weren't
simple
on the
man
street.
hunting the Catgirl data.
Fluid, what was that did I just mishear you? What was it I overheard about you wanting to hover over the concert? Was that just you looking for corpses?
Yeah. I had simple goals, which is just find bodies and
I thought you
and
were
part 'em out.
doing something. I thought you were moving against Tamino.
no,
I warned
and
him about you.
I had no. Well, I had already hired a hacker to hack his stuff, so I felt that was taken care of. But
we tried.
But I had no idea about Black Site. I had no idea about the machinations of everybody. I just waited for them to shoot each other so I could profit off of it.
Yeah.
And then you were just standing there, solo, just standing there. It's so stupid of me. I'm like, this guy can make it happen. But
Right.
it didn't even occur to me. They're sitting there waiting for things to go off.
And I saw that he was sitting in the streets for a while, so I decided to generate some bodies for him.
Oh, well, I wanted to shoot somebody, but nobody seemed to be interested. But we just started talking on the street, and then Tamino's like, "All right, guys, it's canceled. I'm just gonna go home." And I was like, "Is your assistant with you? Does he have your computer?" He's like, "Yeah, we're just gonna get in the car and go home." And so he drives off, and I immediately text Pleasant. I was like, "He's leaving. He's going home. He has his computer. I couldn't get it away from him." I was like, "If you can get here now." And we both just jumped in the ambulance and said, "Follow that car." And Fluid was like, okay. Yeah.
I was like, there's probably gonna be some bodies at the end of this, so I sold a subscription to almost everyone.
He's on his way to Arasaka Tower, and we
just going
needed
home. He's
that
like, "I'm
laptop. So we, myself, Butler, and Wraith got in the ambulance and told him to follow that car."
And Dorrinal is like, "Wait a second, only so many people can be in the ambulance." And we were like, "But Wraith can lay on the stretcher."
This was when it all started happening very quickly.
So what did you think at this moment, Dorrinal? We're like, because obviously you had thought something was going to go down on the street. You were prepping for other stuff, and then all of a sudden everybody just piles into the ambulance and chases this Lincoln town car.
Yeah, that's what happened. I was thinking, wow, the necrodancers are going to create this big riot, and that would be that'd be fireworks everywhere.
Yeah.
And Wraith was a few minutes away from putting together a more traditional or a more conventional cyberpunk game where they were going to run on this unknown corporation's black site for whatever the pay dirt was.
Yeah.
But I see everybody but Tomino's in the streets. and as soon as I click over to the voice channel, I hear Pleasant in his robotic voice say, "Okay, follow that car." And I think to myself, well, if you were looking for the convergence, this is it. It's not the convergence you expected or wanted or even hoped for, but this is the convergence. Let's follow this through.
And what happened next surprised everybody except for Pleasant. And I'll let Pleasant tell you guys what he chose to do while we were. What did you do, Pleasant?
So I waited for the DM to confirm that we had caught up with the car. Now, many characters spend all their eddies on cybernetics. Pleasant spent all his on a rocket launcher.
And I'll just set the scene. I'll just set the scene for everybody. We've got a van, right? But it's an AV. It's an air vehicle. So they're in a flying cyberpunk meat wagon ambulance, and Pleasant and the other solo, the butler, is in the back where the big sliding doors open on the side.
And there's 2 door
Yeah.
gunners that are loyal to Fluid that are just as surprised as everybody else when this happens.
So Pleasant was there to do a job, and that job was get the laptop. And to get the laptop, he had to stop the car. So I pulled out my rocket launcher and I fired it at Tomino's car.
Boy, did you.
Right. So he just whips this thing out before anybody can move and just shoulder mounted shoots a rocket launcher. I tried to use that for a prompt for AI to make the thumbnail for this show. And it kept bonking and saying, "Nope, you can't do that. You can't. You're going to violate terms." And so I'm like, he shoots he shoots streamers out of a firework. Finally, it was just like he shines a flashlight from the door of an ambulance. So it looks almost like a wand on it. So sorry for the tame version of the thumbnail, but the image that I wanted was this flying ambulance with a solo just shooting a rocket and detonating a town car. He hit it right in the front. The whole front of it just obliterated. The thing just turned into a rolling fireball. But everybody in the car died, but Too Cute Tamino was too cute to die. And did he have the platinum package?
So what ended up
He did.
happening is because of the damage rolls and everything, he had a death save because of how much damage he'd accumulated. It being a Arasaka corporate armored vehicle, was able to absorb enough of the damage that he wasn't automatically dead, which you would have expected.
He wasn't happy, but he wasn't dead.
But good old Bradford, his one roll in the entire thing was he had to roll a 5 up on a D10 in order to survive, and he hits a 5 exactly.
Nice.
So Too Cute Tomino is just that cute enough not to die. So
everyone's standing there with slack-jawed crap, except I'm a solo, so I've got good reflexes. And I'm like, all right, here's what I do. He just shot my boss. I'm gonna This Is Sparta stomp kick him out the side of the ambulance. And anybody else on this panel that would have worked, they wouldn't have had a save. They'd have just been jettisoned at speed over a city.
the way that Cyberpunk rules, the solo is the combat class. So the solo is the only person
solo
who
has a
effectively
skill.
gets to not be auto surprised by something.
What's it called again?
Combat
Dorrinal?
awareness.
Yes, combat awareness. So he gets to roll a save, and he does. He makes his save, even though he's like focused on shooting the rocket. I quickly move, try to stomp kick him out the door, and he turns I still kicked him, but he just fell on the deck instead of getting ejected. And then it's on like Donkey Kong. I have a heavy assault rifle, and I just mag dump him at my feet.
So Dorrinal has us roll initiative.
That's right.
And being solos, we have a massive bonus, and we rolled exactly the same.
Yes.
Like
Tied
36.
initiative. We both had
Unbelievable.
maxed out initiative.
And there's a tiebreaker in Cyberpunk 2020. You guys were tied on the tiebreaker.
Yeah.
You were literally acting at the same time.
That just set up the scene for just
Wow.
Like 3 seconds of carnage?
Yeah.
you
Well,
just
so
hear
we both had the opposite attacks. I just sprayed everything out of my AK.
And we did Dunder's shots first, and we did it by the book. So
16
hit
rounds hit him.
locations, damage rolls, armor degradation. It took like 20 minutes for
And all
him
the
to
laughter.
riddle me with bullets.
It was like
And-
that scene in
and
Inglorious
that 20
Bastards
minutes
when they
might
hit
sound like it's
Hitler with the
boring,
Tommy
but
gun,
we were
right?
having a blast the whole time.
It was great. Yeah.
Mean.
Another thing, just for anybody who doesn't ref, I had them both send their orders to me privately, so it was a double blind combat
Yeah.
order situation. So when the tie roll came up and I saw everybody's orders, oh my goodness, it was so I was laughing the whole time.
So at the end of Dunder's attack, Pleasant was ruined, basically. His leg had been blown off. He'd taken massive damage to all areas of his body.
Took several shots to the head.
Once Dunder had finished rolling, we resolved Pleasant's attack, which was one shot directly to the head.
Yep. Did not take 20 minutes on that one.
And through the rules of Cyberpunk, just killed him instantly.
Yes, I believe the description was, and after he's unloaded an entire magazine into you, riddling your body with holes, at the same time you raise your pistol and paint the walls of the van with his brains.
And I did not have the platinum plan, but it wouldn't have worked for me because I was instantly dead in one shot.
Yeah, both characters were dead, but one of them had mostly intact brain and organs.
It was very
Oh,
valuable
no.
to me.
Yeah. Well, but he did have the plan, right, Fluid? And he wasn't dead.
Technically, I wasn't instantly dead.
He was
And
only mostly dead.
I was
Well, the way that
categorically dying.
the way that it works actually in Cyberpunk is that you have a system of where you're in a dying state. It's where you make a death save, and then if you succeed, then you're in this kind of in D&D terms, you'd be at 0 HP. You'd be unconscious, but you could be patched up to survive. But in Cyberpunk, there's a system for how long you can be clinically dead before MedWatch gets a hold of you, or a medical team gets a hold of you. And because he just so happened to get shot and get killed in an ambulance, it happens to be the best place to,
especially if you've purchased the platinum plan.
Pleasant was most certainly, most definitely dead. However, the med techs were able to revive him because he was only dead for 1 minute.
And they were
That's
able to
why
revive.
you get the platinum plan.
And it helps
For real.
And my, this may not be everybody's favorite moment, but my favorite moment of the whole night was the moment when the rocket launcher hits the car, and immediately my screen that I have a customer pick up.
Yeah.
That's right. Tomino's face shows up on your little dash screen.
I'm like, my response time average is going up, baby.
Your little Uber ad.
Going for promotion.
About a minute later, another one pops up. It's just a Pleasant little like electro face display. LED
Well, and
face
it was
display.
all profit because not only did they pay out on those, but like they got all of my stuff for free because it was just a clean headshot. It was like shooting a cockpit in battle.
Double kidneys.
Total scavenge rights. Like, you know what I wanted to do that I didn't because it wouldn't have made sense for the character, but just wanting to win the Braunstein. My first thought was to shoot Caduceus in the back of the head because he was driving the ambulance, jump out the door and use my grappling hook arm to swing down to safety. I thought I could kill everybody in the ambulance. I could probably win, but I was like, there's no way my guy would do that. That just does not make sense at all. This is not a video game. This is his life. So yeah, I got absolutely domed in one shot. It was hilarious. Just taka, 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 and then just one shot. Even in pieces, Pleasant had to assert his dominance over me as a solo. All it took him was one round, and just destroyed my melon. And
in my head, he hit you in the brain like
Oh, yeah.
five rounds into your mag dump, and it was just it was just the body like a
twitching
Chico
nerves
neck,
just kept the gun going.
Just kept the gun going, and you hit him another 10
Well,
times.
not all of my rounds
Yeah.
hit him. 16 of them did, but the rest of the mag was like spanging around. We were trying to figure out if there was any ricochet rules, but we figured
I
most
had
of
the
them
same
would.
overlay. Is like halfway through your mag dump is when he got his off, and then your lifeless body just squeezing the trigger is what pumped the rest into him.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was grand.
So that's how my story ended. But yeah, I was the only one that actually really died, right? Like Tamino was able, the platinum package worked for him. Pleasant is
Civilians.
still alive. He doesn't look the same. And you guys better not use my parts to put him back together. That would be insult to injury.
Oh no, man, that would be amazing.
I'm in favor.
It's all like piano black, and I mean, he's a butler. Like the parts are like nice, ivory inlays and stuff.
Oh no,
They
those
were
are-
right there. The parts are right there.
Well,
while
and-
we were working on it.
You should be embarrassed even more, Dunder, because Pleasant had the dubious distinction of being a completely natural solo.
Yeah, he was
He didn't
totally
have a piece
natty.
of cyberware. Well, guess
Yeah.
what?
Well, if he lives, he's not anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I wrecked his good looks.
The remaining questions for Pleasant are: does Caduceus honor the membership? Does Dr. Moreau fix him up? Does he, if so, does he maintain his sanity through the cybernetics? And
Oh,
if yes to all three, does he still get paid?
oh man, you might have some insurance premiums you got to worry about going up on that one.
Well, I'll tell you, if you don't want cyberware, I'll do biomods instead.
Yeah,
Oh
you
no,
get some-
Pleasant will be the first of Dr. Moreau's cat girls.
you're gonna be coughing up fur balls, man.
Oh yeah, we definitely honor our contracts. I mean, our word is our bond. And
This
I'll probably get
is
a bonus
why
out
I
today.
was willing
No
to
good. You're gonna look
shoot
at it sideways.
civilians for you.
Put your hands up right meow. All right. So while that was going on, there were still key players that weren't in the ambulance. So what were you guys thinking at this point? How did it feel to be because everybody was in the streets at this time listening to this, right? Did you feel like you were missing out? Did you feel relieved that you weren't in there in that horrible furball of fighting? How did that feel for you guys?
I thought that I was part of the reason you were going downtown, because I had tapped Caduceus, telling
The
him that there was going to
mastermind.
be bodies downtown, because I had
Yeah.
done a little pop-up concert that was like, hey, proper concerts happening in the Brownstone. Here's the dead are raising all over Night City, and so I had a couple of goons drop off boxes of these cybernetic skeletons that we all popped up, did a little concert, and started a riot there. That was the intention, to get all
Yeah.
our Arasaka.
You just got to have your way downtown. Like nothing got in your way.
Yeah, it was honestly, it was kind of funny because Dorrinal had said in the chats leading up to it that he wasn't even sure what the Rocker Boy was for, and I just said, I'm going to try to show you what I think it's
Yeah,
for. From
I'll
what
show you, man.
it's societal unrest and upheaval is what it's for. So finding out that it was literally just Tomino saying, I don't like how shit's going down, I'm bailing, is hysterical to me.
That is, it was very disappointing for me.
And it actually was really fun to set it up. They say, it's the advice is that if two players' actions could be in any way sort of construed as to generate a conflict, then you need to rule in that direction. And sure enough, as soon as Pleasant said follow that car, I went to the private channel where I'd been speaking with Tomino, and I looked at the timestamps, and when he said, okay, I'm doing this, and this, and I'm going back to Arasaka Tower, I said, yep. I don't need I don't need to bend this at all. Yeah, you guys definitely can catch a Lincoln Town Car before it makes it.
How
and
about
we are
Crowley and Moreau? How did you guys feel?
I mean, I was a little bit sad that our raid wasn't coming together since we had spent like the last hour working on that. But honestly, this was a whole lot funnier, and I'm so glad that it ended the way that it did.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. Some of us got our forehead perforated.
I think perhaps the raid would have been more satisfying to me as a ref.
Yeah.
But I can't argue with how much fun everybody had.
It went from a big event to like a zoomed in microscope. Crazy. Go ahead, Moreau. We haven't heard from you on this one yet.
Well, I mean, I'm just there. I did not have a direct cause in anything happening, and I'm not there. On the other hand, medtech, not combat.
Yeah.
I'm there to pick up the pieces afterwards or have them brought into my shop and do stuff there. So
turn them into werewolves.
It was amazing to watch the train wreck. And I wasn't involved. Not my circus, not my monkeys. I will munch popcorn.
Right on. So there was one guy who was just laying in the stretcher and then just took that moment when the ambulance landed to hop out and finish his mission. Tell us about what you did, Wraith.
Okay, so sorry, I got distracted for a second. But so like I had been sending Crowley my GPS coordinates. I gave him a link basically, so that he could come up and find us because he couldn't fit into the Airbus. So now, just to preface this, I'm not a heartless bastard, but Pleasant messaged me right as I was about to do it anyway, so maybe I'm a heartless bastard. But I was like, all right, well, he's dead or he's not, but I'm going to hop down, help out the air crew with Mr. Cutie's body. And then I got the laptop. And then because they needed room in the Airbus anyway, right? So I'm like, all right, cool, you guys good. Load them up. I'll get home by myself.
Don't you worry about me. I'll get the next one.
Yeah.
You just worry about your patience. What a good guy.
And so then me and Crowley met up. Me and the fixer met up, and then we sped off into the night. So that's where that got left so far, and I think it played out wonderfully.
And is it known who got the last laugh in that scenario? Can we share that, or is that behind the veil?
No, well, we don't know. So one of the issues we figured out when we were running is that the Netrunner abilities for Cyberpunk 2020 aren't necessarily conducive to the way that we're playing this, and they're kind of boring, really, because like attacking a data fortress, it literally turns into a graph paper dungeon crawl.
Oh wow!
That's
for like
pretty cool. Well, it would be cool, but it's like,
but not in a Braunstein.
Well, not in a Braunstein, and it's just for me. I'm the only Netrunner. I can't bring everybody along with me, and so I would be all by myself playing this
solo mini game.
Yeah, by myself, and then taking time away from everybody with the ref to adjudicate things. So
farm dweebing for the win.
Yeah, basically. So there's some other things out there that I'm expanding on rules wise that come from like the later games, the earlier games, and Interlock, which is the main system that it runs on.
Okay.
So that you can do the kind of hacker things that you're supposed to, that everyone imagines you can do. It's why I didn't get Fluid's image up on the screens, because we looked at it real quick and we're like, well, it says we can do it, but there's no rules for it. So how do we adjudicate it? And then I'm like, don't worry about it. Let's get back to everybody else. Let's keep this thing moving forward. So we'll see. I know a couple hackers. I know a bunch of engineers and software programmers.
So you have the laptop. You just haven't cracked it yet. Okay.
Yeah, I haven't cracked it yet,
Guys?
and I'm trying to create.
So the last laugh is yet to be laughed.
I'm gonna correct that, and I apologize if this is a spoiler and you're trying to play coy. You definitely were able to access all the information on the laptop, but our clever corporate executive here, Mr. Too Cute Tomino, made sure that there was no actionable intel, at least not the stuff that you were looking for.
That's what I was getting at. You want to tell them what you did, Tamino?
As soon as I figured out that the black site was going to be a liability for me, I pulled the plug on the event and I pulled the plug on the black site. I had the drive the data was on ripped out of the case, moved to and then moved, so it was taken offline entirely, handed off to a courier. I went one way, the courier goes the other. You followed me.
We didn't even see the courier. That's
He
the
was
last
long
one.
gone.
Which
Brilliant
is
play.
brilliant. But there's got to be something on that laptop that I can use. That's all I'm saying. So.
Something.
Yeah,
Who knows?
I
Yeah.
bet Mr. Tomino's not out
Messages.
of trouble just yet.
Yeah. And Mr. Tomino, how did that feel when you're like, I'm just driving home, and then all of a sudden your car gets hit with a rocket?
It's like, Mama told me there'd be days like these.
Where did I go wrong?
Yep, I remember while we were discussing the ambulance chase, after a certain point, Tomino was in the VC for most of it, completely silent. And I was wondering, what is he thinking? And does he know what's about to happen?
I definitely gave him an opportunity to metagame a little bit because I went back to the voice chat. I said, so you said that you were going back to Arasaka Tower. Tell me how you do that. Tell me what do you drive? And yeah, regular old town car. I assumed a little bit of armor plating, just standard for Arasaka execs. Man, but the way it wrapped up was really fun, and the stuff that sort of were set in motion, still happened. We had a nice epilogue. The promised concert happened.
Oh,
And then
okay.
and the Necrodancers, this is sort of after the fact. I don't know if you guys read my epilogue, but the Necrodancers pulled off their concert and basically took over the neighborhood for a night. And it was so rowdy that the gangs did not react particularly favorably to this new. They didn't come and join the concert. They were upset. And sure enough, by the end of the night, the cops came back in with the riot squads to control and disperse the crowds, and the media AVs were in there, blah, blah, blah. And whatever happened to that black site, observant folks might have noticed an unmarked AV leave amongst all the media AVs. So nobody got the pay dirt. But the Necrodancers
went unclaimed.
The Necrodancers did cause the complete upheaval in the neighborhood and brought the police and the media back in against the wishes of whichever corporation decided to move the police out of the neighborhood for the day or the week. Maybe we'll never know.
I feel like this went about as well as it could. I feel like everybody got to do the thing that they were there for. The Fixer was running around, passing information. The Necrodancers were setting everything up behind the scenes. Tamino got the last laugh on the hacking thing. The two solos in the game had a glorious gun battle shootout, which one of them obviously won with technique over brute force. A Lincoln Town car got hit with a rocket. Like, I mean, it's crazy because you set this thing up and you let go of the reins and you're like, what is going to happen? And it happens better than you would have controlled it to.
Yep.
So my first question is, are there any other questions people have about what was really going on that didn't get answered in our session here?
I do.
Okay. The DM wants to know.
Because I didn't know anything that was going on. We can talk about the winners in a second, but everybody was really happy with the way Tomino sort of played up being an antagonist and driving everybody crazy, but I was not present for any of those conversations. So what happened? What sorts of things were you saying?
Well, I mean, I think he bowed out, but my conversations with Dr. Moreau were very interesting, right? Because he provided me this hookup with a doctor that was I didn't need to be to have a high success rate or to have the greatest better business bureau rating to do my Robin Hood-esque rehoming of cybernetics that I was getting from Caduceus. And I really enjoyed getting to work, getting to set a fire with a player and say like, okay, I'm going to do this for you, but hey, can you, as part of this, go talk to this guy. Like I said, I had Pleasant hire Wraith, and I think part of the body swapping stuff that Caduceus started that he was working together with Moreau was I was benefiting from partially as well. So it was a lot of fun, honestly. And this is something tying back to something I wanted to say earlier that was brought up when people were talking about preparing the setting and the comfort of being able to let it go and let the memeing happen. Some settings are better built for Braunsteins than others. Cyberpunk, if you can't tell by now, was tailor made for this kind of game. Having medias and fixers who can be your DM channels for intel and things going on, cops and corpos, rocker boys. If you if you want to be like me and pull oh, I forget the name of the techno band, but anyway, if you want to be them crossed with V for Vendetta,
Necro Daft Punk.
yeah, yes. If you want to be Daft Punk crossed with V for Vendetta and see how that plays out, you can do that too. So, it's one of those things where leveraging what was already there, Tomino slotting in as an Arasaka Corpo, and playing that up with what little reputation those of us coming into it who aren't that familiar know. Like I said, some of it takes less legwork on the front end than others. Some of it's more ready-made, and I think this one was perfect. As somebody like me who didn't know a lot about the setting generally could come in and apprehend it and understand it very quickly.
Right on. Okay, so more general about Braunsteins in general now. For people that haven't played, for the players in this one, what does it feel like to play a Braunstein as a player? And how is it different from regular role-playing games for you? We'll start with Bradford and go around the room.
Oh, it's very different. First and foremost, because you're not all playing in the get along gang, working as a unit against a common opposition.
Yeah.
Because everybody's got their own thing going on, and you're playing, you're playing under at least one level of pressure because you've only got so much real time to do everything you want to do before the wrap up.
Yeah.
You've got to come in. You've got to, if you don't have a plan, and I barely had a plan, you've got to be able to either be able to pull the plug and get out, or adapt on the fly. And I came in with very little other than I'm new in town. I'm establishing operations. I don't know who or what the local players are just yet. So I'm playing somewhat cautiously. I'm sticking to my business plan, and that means I'm sticking to my persona as a respectable young corporate executive on the rise. So I didn't play up the heinous stuff that he's actually got going in the background because because that stuff hasn't really been brought on shore yet. That a lot of that stuff's still in Japan. And my epilogue for Tomino was him that night coming home from the hospital. He's bandaged up, he's on pain meds, he talks to his virtual assistant, and the nice guy smiling, smiling, very amiable act goes away, and he's now imagine a mix between a very mad Japanese warlord and a corporate executive. Cold and mad. It's like, oh, OPSEC breach, handle it.
Right.
No more, Mr. Nice Tomino.
Right. There's
Right.
for those who don't know what the guy I'm referring to, I'm referring to Yoshiyuki Tomino, the man who is infamously known as Kill 'Em All Tomino.
Like if it was made in America, they would replace him with Kevin Spacey, I'm sure.
Or that guy from Breaking Bad who was the drug lord.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can't think of the character's name.
Cranston.
Yeah, Bryan Cranston. Yeah.
No, not him.
Oh.
Giancarlo Esposito.
Yeah.
Yes, he'd be perfect. So he just barks orders to his virtual assistant, and I handed off to Dorrinal things for him to work with. I flat out gave him a big fat target in the Arasaka corporate structure that is literally, hey, this is what the bad guys do to people that they can't afford to let slip away.
Yeah.
And I handed off, and two other things I mentioned are references to pieces of what are one is a real world practice. That's the barium protocols. That it doesn't mean actual use of radioactive materials. It is the idea of you deliberately leak things, but every time you leak it to a different suspect, you change the story just a little bit, enough to be identifiable, and then you watch to see what crops up in the media,
and then you know where it came from.
So you then send your people to stitch them up, and that's how you plug leaks. That's an actual real corporate and political practice. The last part is the GOTA technique. If you haven't seen Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex, you're not going to get this. You should watch it. It is seminal cyberpunk fiction now, and it's over 20 years old, so it's considered classic. GOTA is the antagonist for season 2, that second gig, and what the big concept behind the standalone complex is introduced in the first season, and it's weaponized in the second.
Okay.
Tomino's going to apply that technique as a marketing strategy. So
right on, man. So what I'm getting from you is that not only is it just a one night of some strategic play, this is also what may be referred to as, I know Fluid hates this term, but immersive or engaging. We'll say that you are not, it's not just fast and loose, and you're not just playing werewolf or mafia, right? Like, you are still very much in your character as it's fast and loose. And even though we're not get along gang, you're still role playing in both senses of the word. Would you say that's a fair statement?
Yeah, that's pretty fair.
Okay. Which is weird to me, right? Like, you don't have a bunch of extra character. Well, I guess people did bring their character backstories to it, and it did inform how we played. But you'd think that this would be counter to that conventional style, that this would be more of a war game, a dispassionate moving of pieces on the imaginary board. And not only is it more of a war game and fun, but it's also some of the best role-playing moments I've had is doing these Braunsteins. All right, same question, Black Sam Bell. What does it feel like if someone's never played in one of these and they're just watching this and scratching their heads? What does it feel like moment by moment to be a player in a Braunstein, and how is it different for you from normal gaming?
It's hugely different. So, on several levels, but it's still kind of the same thing. So it's like walking into the first one, like, you don't know what to expect at all. You have no idea how any of this works. you're just completely gobsmacked, basically. So once you kind of figure it out that it's a game of diplomacy on one level, but you're just going to shake and move and see what falls out of a tree, right?
Yeah.
So, but I think, at least for me, and just kind of mimicking what Tamino just said, was the hardest part to do is to get a motivation for how your entity is supposed to play, whether it be a faction or just the character you're playing. But once you have that, you can walk into any of those situations and then kind of like already know, okay, well, this guy's going to do this. Like this makes sense to make for this action to happen, for him to take this action, to think this way. So, but the coolest thing is just watching the chaos unfold, which you don't get normally if you're just dungeon crawling or you're the superheroes going after the supervillains. You don't get that same kind of pinball action that is kind of amazing. When anyone that's paying attention, listen to all of us on the panel that played the game. Not even the game master knew exactly what was going on half of the time, and that's not bad.
That as you say, that's not bad. That fog of war is not off-putting. In fact, it's engaging. And why is that?
Well, it's because it creates energy and interest. It engages your psyche. You're like, okay, well, I don't know what's going on over here. Like, the mystery of it makes you play in a different way. And it's very exciting. Like, I don't know if everybody else can see, but everybody that played this game was very energized about it. And every Braunstein that I've been a part of, and granted, it's only a handful right now, there's a certain type of psychic energy that happens when it's going on, and everyone is fully engaged, having a great time, even if they get shot in the head. And it's different than
throw that character sheet away.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I was talking with some of the guys afterwards, but some of the other games that I'm in, they have like sort of the normal traditional way of, you've got the party and it goes out and does the thing, right?
Yeah.
And then a good way to drop a cinder block into the middle of the pool is to throw a Braunstein and then see what happens after it. It's a way to kind of like elegantly flip the table and just see, because you want to keep things moving. But with this, specifically with the way that the Cyberpunk is structured internally with all these different roles, I think this could be the thing that Dubs was talking about, is like the nonstop Braunstein. Like, we get together like once every month or 2 months or whatever. We track the downtime actions that we're doing, and then we all come together for an event, and then have a fireworks show. So,
yeah.
But it's
right on.
If you're scared to try a Braunstein, don't be. You have to be willing to let go of your character and as a referee of control over some of this stuff. Set the pieces up on the board, absolutely, but once the game starts, all bets are off, and you don't know where it's going to go, and that's the exciting part about it.
All right, same question, Necrodancer. What does it feel like to play as a player in a Braunstein?
It can feel intimidating at first, especially when you don't really know what's going on, or you're coming in when you don't know the system. What I will say, though, and this is kind of going to tie into something that Sam Bell said, as well as what I started at the beginning of the stream. If you have a meme and you have a dream, you can make anything. You can make something awesome happen in a Braunstein. And the reason why I say it that way is that this is a good trick for getting, as a player, for getting into any role-playing table or situation that you're not comfortable, is you pick a nice rubric for yourself to channel all of your decision making through. So my paladin that I'm playing in AD&D is based off of a kind of goofy paladin-esque character from a video game that I enjoy. And I just
Okay.
always think of what would that guy do in X instance, right? And it makes it very simple as to the decision making process. If you create a strong enough meme, that will bring a center of gravity to it, and then the dream is the telos, is the direction, and then you just point it in a direction. My whole thing was to prevent the anything bogging down. I wanted to be somebody who would start fires and create conflict if there wasn't going to be any, because I was trying to test some things myself as a player and with Braunsteins generally. I feel like my experiment succeeded. Knowing nothing about Cyberpunk, I was able to, or almost nothing about Cyberpunk, I was able to come in, have a blast, and never be left wondering what should I be doing or what's going on, because I always had things of my own to dig into, investigate, or stir up. So, as far as different from normal play, I'd say that people are generally more engaged because it's usually more of an event. You typically have more players, but also that conversely, instead of people feeling like they have less time to speak, people end up insisting on speaking more because they care about what they brought to the table, and they want to get their slice of the pie in. So,
Yeah.
all that to say, you find that people are a lot more cognizant and aware of the time, and of all of the people there. And generally speaking, I think we just have a lot of experience when it comes down to the social element of it. You can't just roll to convince another player or to deceive another player. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
can't roll deception, add my +7, and then you don't believe me or you don't know that I lied to you.
Yeah.
Like, how well can you actually sell your bullshit to the other player?
That's where it gets rough, because then you're like fooling actual people, and not just people, but like your friends and people that you enjoy playing with, and you are trying to lie to them.
Yeah,
Well,
but like,
yes.
but we all assume, like that, especially if we're doing a Braunstein, that
Yeah.
like, yes, you guys are my bros. We love hanging out, especially if it's somebody like Fluid. It rolls in.
Yeah,
There's
Brian
gonna be
isn't.
some tricks played. And he may kill your character. He may do some shady things. But at the end of the day, you're there to play that game and do that.
Yeah.
So like, it's not,
And I don't know if you happen to know, but
but it builds social
Brian
skills
and
too, which is great.
Brian and Slippery Pete are not the same people. Okay, like you do not treat Slippery Pete the same way that you treat Brian. You just don't. If you want to
And do not
come
treat
ahead.
Petrov the Prestidigitator the same way you would treat Slippery Pete either.
Yeah. I hope Brig hears this. You choke that little kid.
Brig needs this. All right. Pleasant, did you have a different answer or a different view on it, on what it feels like to be a player in a Braunstein?
I'd also just say, if you can, slip in your technical versus strategic thing, because now's a good time, if any, to bring that up. That's a brilliant way to describe it.
Okay. I would say the most noticeable difference for a Braunstein is that there's no font of information. When you're playing with a DM, you can just ask them anything, and that makes it easy to be grounded. A Braunstein is chaos in that you don't know anything. There's no one to ask. You have to make the game yourself. So it's very much the more you put in, the more you get out. I think about a tweet by one of the Browser Diceless players, Angry Steak, who says the way to go is just jump in, sink or swim. And I took that to heart in this game, and I was constantly looking for jobs, and when I had one, I just went for it, and it really paid off, and it was insanely fun. That's the general point. this particular Braunstein was interesting because we had two different levels of players, strategic and tactical, as coined by Dr. Moreau, where the strategic players, Tamino, Necro Dancers, Dr. Moreau, and probably the Fixer, were all making plans to affect the game world with higher objectives, and they then pass the quests down to the tactical level, which was Pleasant, Butler, Caduceus, and Wraith. And this system worked really well,
Yeah.
and it really makes it really is immersive because the quests, the missions are organically generated through play. So Necrodancers had a mission and he gave it to me and I passed it to Wraith and we made it happen with Caduceus and you were employed by Tamino and there was a conflict, and Braunstein uniquely allows that sort of dynamic across spheres of play to happen.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to ask Fluid a two-parter version of the question. As one who's done both, what does it feel like to be a player in a Braunstein? What does it feel like to be a DM? And how would you contrast each of those with being a player and a DM in a standard role-playing type scenario?
Okay. I would say both as a player and as a DM in Braunsteins, you're often confused. As the DM, you're often overworked. Because at least the way I ran it, I had to really parse through everybody's orders in a very kind of systematic way. When they wanted to do things that required me to adjudicate whether they're going to be intersecting with other people. That may not be the best way to do it. I don't know. I think we have yet to find best practices, but confusion will reign. I think that's a universal thing that everybody's mentioned. But as far as conventional play, there is more structure in conventional play, and so you often will have a better idea of the concreteness of everything that's around you more. And the things that are immediately observable and what you can affect during a session. In a Braunstein, I would say, assume what you think this world is like and assume that that's there. And the DM will tell you if it's not. If it's Jeffrey, well, he'll then laugh at you. And not everybody will do that. But, of course, that's not there, you fool. But if there's one advice for both conventional and Braunstein play as a player, I think it's the same one. Have an agenda. Pick something that's consistent with your role, your class, and the setting. That no other character would have, even characters of the same class, and try to pursue that separate from whatever play is going on. That's especially important for Braunsteins, but in conventional role play, it can really add to the game as far as your interactions with other players, because they'll be like, "Why are you doing that?"
Yeah,
or
it adds spice to the stew.
Yeah, and if everybody's doing that, you're almost making conventional play into a Braunstein in its own way.
Yeah.
At least that's my opinion. If it's a dungeon crawl is very rigid, sort of set circumstance. You're always walking down a hallway, going into a room, walking down a hallway, going into a room. There's fewer opportunities to pursue agendas in those cases, which is the beauty of the one-to-one time and downtime play in conventional one-to-one is that it does give you more opportunities to pursue your agenda, separate from the other players or from a rigid session setting sort of circumstance.
There's like a trust that you just put into the game itself, where you say, as a DM, I don't need to try and funnel this. As a player, I can just ride the stream. And I don't know, I've done a bunch of these now, and I haven't ever had it to be where just nothing ever happens. Something always converges.
There will be times like this in this game. I did spend a fair amount of time twiddling my thumbs, but I felt that was consistent with my role because I was just waiting for bodies to drop so I could.
Yeah.
I could have been more proactive, like I said earlier, and hired you to make the bodies drop.
Well, I twiddled my
which
thumbs.
if I had thought of it, that would have been a
drop my body for you.
That's okay.
Right on.
But trying to be proactive does help in a Braunstein.
For sure. All right, Dorrinal, last word. What is this crazy Braunstein thing we're doing? How does it feel as a player? How does it feel as a DM? Why are we so hung up on it? Is this so much better than what we were doing before?
Yeah. What can I say? As a player, it's one of those things where there are no more guide rails. I'm definitely the type of player that likes to at least have some context to work in. Like Fluid was saying, you are aware of your immediate surroundings, and at the character level, it's important to have at least even just a set goal that you set for yourself.
Yeah.
Absolutely important. So I did want to underline what he was saying about that. It's and running the game. It's the fog of war applies to you just as well as to all the players. You lose sight of everything, and you do lose control of everything. And if you don't have experience as a neutral referee, Braunstein's an excellent way to build those skills because you are no longer trying to enforce a narrative. My role in this Cyberpunk Braunstein was to make sure that everybody had enough hooks that they could interact with something or one other player at any point in time. And I regret that there was a little bit of downtime for people like Caduceus. Not totally his fault. There could have been more to it, but
no, I think it was okay though. I think I've seen that in every Braunstein that except for the one where I died immediately, Dunder. Where there's a point where you're like, I don't know exactly what's going on. Something's gonna happen soon. I feel it, but sometimes you gotta wait. You gotta wait for the moment, right?
And as a ref, you lose control in a traditional game where you're playing, Brosar style. You're not railroading. You're not. You're letting the players drive the action. You still need to. The monsters are doing this, or you're enforcing time constraints. You're enforcing. There are NPC actors in the fog of war that you don't know about. This takes all of that. All the tools that you normally use to control the action, you don't even need them. Conventional wisdom is as a dungeon master, when the players are twiddling their thumbs, ninjas attack. That's what happens.
It's your fault they're bored. You better do something, right?
If they're not taking any initiative, then someone's going to take initiative and fight them. Technically, I still had that. I could have had my new favorite poser gang, the Wojaks, show up and cause trouble at any point.
That sounds awesome.
At any point, I didn't need it. During the first hour, I thought I needed it, but I checked in with everybody, and everybody was having a blast, and alliances were forming. As I talked about earlier. You lose that control. You become a neutral referee, and you can't possibly think up anything cooler than what everybody else has come in. Just make sure everybody's in the scenario and working towards something. And just handle the rule questions as they come. It's confusing and liberating. I would also advise don't get discouraged.
Yeah.
As a player, especially if you're a more passive player, it's going to be easy to get discouraged. Don't just try to act a little bit more. As a ref, you're going to get really discouraged because once it gets away from you, you think everybody's having a terrible time. They're not. Everybody's enjoying it.
Having a blast. They have the most fun when it gets away from you.
Yes.
I forgot one thing, which was that the parallel ability to communicate parallelly, and simultaneously, because we're working on different channels with different sets of people, is a real big plus for Braunstein over conventional play.
Yeah.
Because the bandwidth is wider.
Yeah, great point. It's tough to play. We've all played online, Dungeons and Dragons and such, and it's more like a phone call, right? It's tough to have these open conversations where we're trying to work things out. It's more like one or two people talking at a time in serial. But then now you can do all that in parallel because you've got 4 different conversations from different people who are trying to, work against each other.
The conversations are totally different, right? Like before, you're like, okay, DM, be the world to me. Give me all the information I need, and I'll give you one decision, and then you work it into the reality. And in a Braunstein, it's like, oh, DM, I'm glad you're here. Let me catch you up on what's been happening. Right?
Yeah.
I talked with this guy, and he agreed to this, and here's what we're doing, and now you know what my plans are.
Yeah.
But this...
And all we need you to do is adjudicate this. Like, use your rules mastery, your idea of the rules, and then tell us how this pans out. It's really cool.
Which in one sense is easier for the DM, right? But you do
easier.
lose things. If you wanted to be Matt Mercer, as a DM in a Braunstein, you do not get to do near as many, if any, silly voices. You do not get to do your own immersive role play as all the NPCs, right?
I think
about that.
I think for that.
Much.
Yeah, not much. I mean, for that style of dungeon master or referee, I think they're going to miss out a lot. I think especially they're going to miss out on their players who are all going to leave them for better referees. And I don't mean to throw.
I love it.
I don't mean to throw shade on Matt Mercer personally. I
He's
actually
good at what he does. We just
I get the impression he's an excellent game master. But the point is that this game does provide so much more, such a better experience, and you still have the freedom to do it. The ref can. One more spoiler for everybody. One player had to drop out, and he also was going to play a corporate.
Okay.
And would have been a natural foil to Tomino. Whatever Bradford was doing would have been a natural foil. So guess what? I just took that role onto myself.
Right on.
This unnamed corporate is responsible for the other black site, for the other security, responsible for things happening to Tomino's project, that sort of thing. The hooks were there. And had you raided the black site, then you might have found out more. But so someone a ref can still exercise their creativity as much as they want.
Okay.
Time permitting. And that's the key, because I think Flute is the one that said that they're much busier. So much busier.
Yeah, I want to underscore this point as from the player perspective, that you need to not get frustrated, because in my first Braunstein, I had an entire my main plan got subverted by the side plan, which is the legendary Red Kegger. If you've read or heard about that,
yeah.
That side meme thing to get involved became the convergence for that session. Right, and it takes over. So whenever a convergence happens, if it feels like we're talking about something mysterious, it is the capital C convergence. It is the point around which all the attention is drawn, where the friction between the player interaction has created the drama that we've all been like fishing for in our own way.
And it happens organically in a Braunstein, which is the cool part.
Yeah, it's almost never what you planned to do, right? Like what I planned to do was to send 20,000 raving fans at a black site. That had happened. But I still had I still achieved a victory, and I had a blast the entire time with all of the shenanigans going on. In a similar way, you need to understand that because the referee has limited bandwidth, and I'm hoping that we can experiment with maybe adding in a second one, and seeing how that plays out. But but because of that, you're going to have orders that didn't get there in time before either NPC actions or other player actions created a convergence or took precedent and frustrated you. And part of the immersiveness that Pleasant was speaking of is that unlike a normal D&D table where everybody goes around and you say what you do and you get to have your turn, the best laid plans of mice and men often go astray.
Yeah.
Just as in real life,
Yeah.
you make a plan, something cooks off, somebody pulls out a rocket launcher in a flying trauma van.
Nobody
And then it
expects the
all-
ambulance to shoot a rocket at you.
Ha ha ha.
Call an
Now-
ambulance, but not
Yeah,
for
when-
me.
This
When
brings me to
Pleasant
it.
pulled out the rocket launcher, he texted me. He goes, don't try and stop me. I'm like, oh, I'm not trying to stop you for doing anything, man. You do you.
You do you. What were you going to say, Fluid?
Oh, this brings me to a thought that I've had about Braunsteins, which is, in conventional play, that there's a classic table size of a DM and maybe 4 players, and AD&D says a lot more players. In a Braunstein, I think between 5 and 10. 5 is, I think, a minimum to get the permutations of potential alliances between players big enough that interesting things can happen. When it's 4, it's just like 2 or 3 collude and leave the one out. And but if you get too many players, I think at least as a DM, it becomes really hard to parse through orders to the point where you're a little paralyzed. Because if the way I did it, at least, I'd go through everyone's orders and try to see where they would line up, right? And so the more players you have, the more sets you have to go through and think about to see where things might interact with one another. And that can be overwhelming if you get, I can't imagine doing more
Another
than 10
thing
players.
that we could maybe look to address this and in further experimentation is addressing the timekeeping. I think we more or less, we didn't really talk about this and solidify it for the Cyberpunk Night Citystein, but it was more or less 1-to-1 time for the session because everything that was taking place feasibly took as long as it took. The discussions we had, the backroom deals, we extrapolated a little bit of time whenever somebody would click out of the graveyard to the streets.
Yeah, the travel time disappeared. It was like an episode of 24. It didn't take you any time to get somewhere, but other than that.
But I mean, that was the nice thing about the constriction being we were all within a handful of blocks. It makes sense.
Yeah.
It's not a reason. Like in the time it took,
it's not like we were on a continent
over there and then have and then have your conversation. By the time
Well,
it was your turn and you spoke, it probably took about that long to get there and do that. So it all
Yeah,
worked out pretty closely.
And it wasn't just in this Braunstein, the Shuckstein. Dubs also noticed the same thing when he was bouncing between the channels, talking to the different players that were scheming or in different parts of the city. The timing, it stayed real world because like when he would leave a group after giving an adjudication, he would pop over somewhere else and then deal with that. And by the time he got back to us, we're done. Like the time seemed to flow naturally. It was almost minute for minute. And I think he wrote about it.
So much of a Braunstein just puts stuff on easy mode. It seems like,
Yeah.
I mean, other stuff is overwhelming and crazy, but like, there's a lot that just comes together.
The one thing that was cool in the Dubs are on the Shuckstein was that he didn't need to adjudicate. Like, let's say 2 guys wanted to get into a fight, so you've got 2 really good players that know the rules, and we don't need him there for that. Like, we're gonna roll against each other, and we're gonna sort this out.
And that actually is where I think Braunstein and Gangbusters can really shine. You put in a week orders and then just see where people have to shoot it out during downtime play in the week and have them resolve it until the next
Yeah.
until the next week's orders happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you need something like AD&D, Axe, or if you had something like AD&D, Axe, or even Cyberpunk 2020, you could, if it's robust enough, and you've got people who can at least have access to the PDFs, we could have run a combat by ourselves. It wouldn't have been as fun as doing it and exploring it all together. But it's one of those things that if you have a system like that where the players themselves can adjudicate in the black and white of, okay, well, you tried to jump me. Were we surprised? In AD&D, we both know how to adjudicate surprise. So it's one of those things where I think more and more of that stuff can get shopped out to the players themselves to handle during the Braunstein. And we keep running with, maybe intentionally stating that what happens during the Braunstein is happening minute for minute. Then that kind of that it makes sense if a couple of people saddled off for 20 minutes to do a combat, then that's what happened.
And then on top of it, so you were saying, Fluid, that you don't think you could handle more than 10 players, but let's say you've got 16 or whatever, or even 5 or 6, having like a couple assistant referees that at least know the rules well enough. They could even be players, and some people will be like, well, you can't, like, they're players, they're not impartial. Well, then maybe just pick who you're playing with better. Like, I trust all my bros. So,
well, right. Like there's a Western game called Gunslinger, which was a tactical skirmish board game that came out in, I think, 79 or 80. But the thing with that was, on the campaign game, when your character was doing their gunfights, all the other players were playing the NPCs. They were there to mess you up.
Cool.
And that was the way the rule was written. But you definitely could have a third player that's in the Braunstein who's just not involved in whatever's going down.
Yeah.
Just ask him to be an adjudicator on anything that might be, you might have a disagreement about.
Or hell, if you have a mass combat that breaks out, that's the convergence and it's 2 factions and maybe a third one that's allied with one of the other ones. Maybe you just say, okay, well, I've got 200 men. You're the lieutenant, and we all just, what I mean? We all hand off, and everybody's doing the roles. Everybody's engaged, and it probably will move quicker.
For sure.
Instead of the DM having to roll it all out, or the player, what I mean? You could basically make that so that everybody takes part in it. And even if they weren't the faction, well, when the convergence happened at the Red Kegger or whatever, then I was one of the dragons, or for example.
Slicarius says a interesting comment in the chat. He says, way more fun for everyone to get to watch 2 top tier solos annihilate each other as a group. And that was one of the things for me that was my answer to the question, is like, how does it feel to be a player, and how is it different? As a player in a Braunstein, there's constant FOMO. Like, you feel like the key deal may be going on in another room and you weren't invited. And then you're like, what do I have to put together to make sure that I'm the one driving the bus? So that fog of war just makes it so engaging, because you're just focused, and you're it's like poker, where you're trying to put them on their moves and figure out what they're going to do. But for me, conventional play, I have had games that were good games, good DM, good adventure, whatever, but combat was a slog. Combat was boring. I have never had a boring combat in a Braunstein. And even with this one, it took us 20 minutes to figure out where all of my bullets landed. Maybe you were bored, Pleasant. I was on the edge of my seat, because I was like, I need one of those things to finish him off. Yeah, right.
I
don't think you were.
I was not bored at all, because I knew when it was my turn, I was gonna splatter your head.
You were gonna make my head a canoe.
That's what I was saying. I'm like, I think he knew the action that he took, and he's like, okay, cool, I'll get through this. I'll try to eat all these bullets, but I do know I've got one shot, and I'm probably gonna take your head off.
Yeah,
it's because of the stakes, Dunder. It's the stakes. Every combat in the Braunstein is exciting because the players created it, and the stakes were real and personal. In a way that in a way that fighting over the treasure at the end of the dungeon isn't.
Yeah. And like, for example, my character didn't do anything in that shootout. I was a driver, right? My only concern was, is a stray bullet going to hit me? And in the entire session, I made one roll, which was a piloting roll, I believe.
Yeah.
But that was fine. That's all I needed to do.
Well, we were all in that airborne, like we were a community joined by fate. If a stray bullet had hit you, we were all gonna die.
Well, yeah, we were all dependent on Dorrinal's adjudication, right? He could have ruled the rocket exhaust filled the whole compartment, and we all take damage, and the thing crashes, and whatever. He could have ruled that that bullets are spraying around the cockpit, and who knows, we could have shot the whole thing down. So even though you're waiting for those adjudication, you're waiting for the results, that's called tension. And, there's a book called Among the Thugs, which is this memoir by this American in Britain hanging out with these soccer hooligans. And he describes the tension of being packed into the stands in a soccer match and watching the soccer game, and how nobody scores and the tension just builds up as people are waiting to score. And that's the same sort of tension when you're in a Braunstein or in one of these combats where you're not involved, but you're involved.
Yeah. Well, and it's also a reason why people that play this way, why we care so much about rules as written. If you're a conventional player, you'd be like, why are they so uptight? The DM can do fiat. We'll just hand wave it. We'll do rule of cool. We'll do rule 0 so we keep the story going, right? Well, if your story is, I'm trying to shoot him and he's trying to shoot me, you want your DM to follow the rules of the game, right? You want it to be fair. Rules as written are so important there. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, well, that's what the rules are there for. It's exactly what you just said. It's we all played cops and robbers as kids, and you pull your handgun, your little finger out, and you go pew pew at the other guy, and then you're going to argue for like a half an hour over.
I got you. No, I got you first.
The rules are there, and I want to point out Crimson Jester. He said that in the chat, you can Braunstein any system, and that's true. And you should, honestly, but that's what the rules are there for. It's just for that quick adjudication of, okay, cool, let's see what happens from this. And if you're so stuck on the story, so let's say that your character, Mr. Butler, like you're so wrapped up in that guy living that you get upset about that. Like the game would have gone completely different if we had approached you on the side and brought you into the fold as to what we're doing, because it didn't sound like you had a lot of love through this conversation.
I have a comment on that. But
we also continue. Such a great firefight.
Yeah.
Rules produce cool.
Hey, there's the quote.
Got him.
Somebody put that in the chat.
Flip it.
Gold.
Go ahead, Pleasant.
I have one question about the game for you, Dunder.
Okay.
Why did you betray me?
Why did I betray you?
Tomino
why does the
was
scorpion
paying you
sting?
pittance
He was
to hand out flyers, and I was going to cut you into the deal. You could have stayed with us, but instead your grey matter is putty on the side of a meat wagon.
All right. I don't want what
my
Dorrinal just said to be true, but it might be. Like, the fable about the scorpion that wants to ride across the lake. And they're like, why did you sting me? He's like, I'm a scorpion. It's in my nature.
I do think that and that's the impulse that you demonstrated there, where I just think that you were like, you know what, like you were doing the thing where it's like the deals have been made, stuff's gonna happen, but I want to make my mark. How can I do it?
There's like why my character did it, and there's why I did it. The reason my character did it is
you had extra blue balls.
Yeah, no, well, that could be. Yeah. My character had the same ethos that yours did. that was the fun thing about playing a solo in this, is we didn't have to think strategically. Like, it was a load off to not have to worry about that. We were just like, you pay me, I'm going to make sure you walk away fine, and anyone that doesn't want you to winds up on their face, right? So part of it was nobody wanted my services. The only guy that gave me a break was Tomino, and so that was part of it. The other part was, once the visual in my mind of you getting stomp kicked out of the side of a flying ambulance, once I pictured that imagery, I was like, I want to see this happen. Didn't work out for me. Did not work out for me. But like, sometimes things just create themselves in your conscience, and you are powerless to resist them. I think Gene Wolfe said something about that in the Shadow of the Torturer. Like, we believe that we create symbols, but actually they create us. What do you think about that?
I respect that, and I think Braunsteins are made better by people playing the character rather than just to win.
Yes. There is something satisfying, and I've talked about this before, in going down in character, especially if it's hilarious. I think I told you guys about in the Traveler one, where I was playing both ends against the middle, and then someone gave me truth serum, and they asked me, can we trust you? And I had to honestly tell them, nope, I haven't made my mind up yet who I'm going with. And then I fell asleep, and they didn't let me wake up. And I knew that I was cutting my own throat by saying that, but it was like, oh, this is where the story is going. And I don't know how to describe that. I'm glad you brought that up. I don't know how to describe that to people, where you will make a decision that doesn't win you the game and be fully satisfied that that was what was supposed to happen. Anybody else experience that?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Well, yeah. Just like my being a little bit more passive, because I was just like an average Joe doing his job, right? And if I had an opportunity to double bill someone for drugs and sell the drugs I bought with his subscription money on the side, I would have. But that was also my job, but in a way, right? That's the role.
All right, guys. Well, we need to land this bird. I want to thank everyone that has stayed with us. We're like 15 minutes shy of 3 hours. If you're watching this later after the fact, thank you for spending your time with us. I hope that you guys got something out of this. I hope that you are inspired to play your own. I did not remember the thing that Wraith said that I wanted to. I'm going to watch this later. I might have to hit you up on Twitter, Wraith.
I wish I could remember it too.
If you guys are interested in that, you can follow me. I just put my my x.com, my Twitter handle, in the chat. But thank you, Dorrinal, so much for putting this together, giving us a great night, giving us some great memories. And I am shocked and honored at the quality of people that I know and the quality of people that I get to play with. And thank you guys so much for being an open and embracing community. The Broasar, I have had zero problems with them. I came in ready to learn. I approached humbly, and it has been an amazing journey. So thank you guys for running this Braunstein with me. And I hope that you guys enjoyed this time to share these ideas together. With that being said,
absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks for the
thanks for having us on. Thanks for playing.
Much appreciated.
The most important thing. And
right on, guys.
Dorrinal, thanks for hosting it. And then don't think this is the last time it's happening, because we're doing it again.
No, sir.
Apparently.
Thank you, Dorrinal, for inspiring a now lifelong fascination with Cyberpunk. I'm lost in the sauce, dude. So thank you.
Yeah, me too.
Yet again.
I've spent the last week just because I didn't know what the technology was capable of in Cyberpunk, and I've learned all this crazy stuff about it, and I'm in it. So
I'm grateful. It's one of my favorite games of all time. I haven't played it in years, and I really appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity to run this again. Big thanks to Maximum Mike Pondsmith, Cyberpunk 2020. This is a book. If you don't have a copy of this, get it. This guy will be remembered as one of the premier role-playing game designers of all time.
He was the GOAT. He was the GOAT.
And we have to.
No, he's absolutely awesome. And like I mentioned, another game earlier on, Underground, which is one of the first games I got to play with people back in the early '90s or mid '90s or something.
Oh man, that
As a
game's
kid.
brutal.
Oh, it is. But when I started digging into Cyberpunk, I'm like, this predates Underground, and so
Oh, yeah.
and there's so much similarities. Underground's a little bit more cartoonish, ridiculous.
Mhm.
Like the McDonald's serves people. It's like Soylent Green is real. Pretty funny stuff. But yeah, no, like I said, I've been overjoyed to dive into this. I'm kind of obsessed.
One last thanks. So Maximum Mike for Cyberpunk 2020. We have to acknowledge the tribal chief. Thank you, Jeffro.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Jeffro.
Broser. Anybody who is, if you're still here, first of all, I hope that people listening later found Pleasant's voice twice as enjoyable on 2 times speed, and that you go get Broser for free, because it will. Anybody who hasn't run one yet, it will make it so easy.
I just put the link again in the chat for it'll take you right to drive through RPG, and you can get Browser for absolutely free. Until next time, remember,
I want to just say thank you to everyone for welcoming me in. This is a bit one my first game with the bros. It's been great. You guys are cool.
right on, bro.
Good show.
Thanks.
Right on.
We try.
Alrighty. Until next time, remember, rules produce cool, and all you need is a meme and a dream. Peace out.